when I started at the center 16 years ago, we didn't have a prevention program. And so every once in a while, Karen or somebody would go and do a presentation, that wasn't even super specific, and it wasn't like it is now. And so just being able to see over the years, like that prevention program grow, and now people look to us as the experts on being able to talk about child maltreatment and child abuse and preventing child abuse. And so, it's just been amazing to see the growth of that program that really didn't exist, even 10 years ago.
Why is that program important?
Well, I think that obviously it's important in the sense that we want to prevent child abuse, but I think whenever you come from being someone that works at the center and being somebody that sees abuse happening day in and day out, then you really kind of think, oh my gosh, we're able to kind of catch this on the back end and help kids start that healing process, which is amazing. But what can we do, to help prevent?
And who is that program targeted towards? Like, who would take your training?
Yeah, so, we have several different trainings that we offer. We do mandated reporter trainings, and those are more specific to community members and professionals in the community that work at youth serving organizations, faith-based organizations, just really anyone that works around children would be considered a mandated reporter. And so, there are lots of trainings that you can take that are brief and that fill that requirement to be trained, as a mandated reporter. But I really think that our training just goes so much farther beyond that. We not only cover the requirements by law to make a report if you suspect abuse, but also you just kind of what's happening in our community and where are those gaps and that need to be filled, right here in Northwest Arkansas and Washington County. We also have training specifically for parents that's a child sexual abuse prevention training, and a lot of times I tell people that, we could do trainings on preventing physical abuse or neglect, but really so much about child sexual abuse is not ever talked about. People don't talk about it, and you also can't see it, all over a child, where you can see bruises or you can see, a child that maybe hasn't bathed or, is dirty and neglected. And so I think that child sexual abuse prevention is something that needs to be talked about, and it's so important. And so we do trainings that are an hour long, so we talk to kids about, or to parents, and so the child sexual abuse prevention training is specific to parents, caregivers, people that want to protect their own kids, right? People in their own families. And so that training specifically not only talks to parents about how to talk to their kids at an age-appropriate way from a really early age about preventing child sexual abuse, but also about how we can create policies, how they can start asking questions at places that they take their kids, and what are their policies on child protection and child abuse prevention, as well as internet safety. I really feel like I always am saying things about, that we want to get away from stranger danger. And we know that most abuse happens by a trusted adult, right? So it's like almost always someone that child knows and trusts and has access to them. However, if they are going to run into a stranger, it's going to be on the internet. So that is a really important piece, I think, to be really talking to parents about as well, because, I think that we're in, and really we always will be, but in this age of the parents are never going to really be able to keep up with what their kids are learning about technology. And even when we think back to ourselves, when computers were like dinosaurs, we didn't know, we knew so much more than our parents ever did, right? And so it's the same way now. And these kids have access to so much technology that the parents will just really never be able to keep up. So we have to really be educating parents on how to keep their kids safe online.
And then with those trainings, what does the future of those trainings look like pertaining to the new space and the new building and the growth of the center and the growth of Northwest Arkansas?
Right. So the way that we have been able to grow the prevention program, we started small. I know that, I would word of mouth, I would reach out to a few people and say, hey, would you be interested in a training, and could I come and train your staff, or things like that. And so that worked really well. One of the downsides is that I would have to say, can I come to your place, because we don't really have enough room for you to be able to come to our location to do a training like this. So we've been really lucky that it's worked out for the most part, and we've been able to provide trainings at other people's facilities and things like that. And we have had a few trainings at our location as well that have been very intimate and small in our, what little space we could kind of gather up, when we didn't have an emergency case coming in or anything like that. And so the future is just so bright. Like, we are going to have so much more space. We're going to be able to hold trainings at our own facility, which I think will be so great as well, because we will be able to do a training with someone and then say, do you want to see like where these things actually take place? Do you want to see what a forensic interview room looks like? Or even if it's a parent, do you want to see what it would look like if your child had to come to the safety center for therapy or for an interview or for a medical exam? And so I think that that's going to be really great, but also just having that space that's our own to be able to provide that really, really important education. So I think that we're going to be able to train way more people. I just think we're going to just be able to make such a bigger impact on the community.
We doing good so far? Okay. Are we good on training?
I want to talk about Empower Me really quick, because I forgot to talk about that. So another training that we have been able to implement across Washington County that has just been so amazing and wonderful has been the Empower Me curriculum. And so the Empower Me curriculum is a body safety education curriculum that was created for elementary age children, K through 5th or 6th grade. And we have been able to implement that with every public school counselor in Washington County. And so the idea is that we provide the curriculum to the school counselors, we train the school counselors in the curriculum, and then in turn they train the children and educate them on this body safety curriculum. And it's been really wonderful because, even 10 years ago or less, I don't want to say an exact year, but even less than 10 years ago, children were still being taught curriculums in schools, and not even necessarily curriculum, but just really being taught a lesson maybe about stranger danger, and about safety in that way. And so we really want to be mindful that we're educating our children that it's likely not going to be a stranger, right? And so one of the really wonderful core messages of the Empower Me curriculum is that we really focus on the behavior of the person and not the child's relationship to them. And I think that that's so, so important, because we also don't want to scare children that someone they know is going to abuse them, but we really just want to stay away from any relationship, because it doesn't matter who it is, if anyone tries to hurt them, that they can tell one of their trusted adults. And so, one of our goals is to train all of the private school counselors and be able to get the education out in all of the private schools. But as well, I think with the growth of the center and with the growth of the prevention program, the hope is that we can really start providing more curriculums at middle school level, high school level, and even beyond that.
Yay. Okay, let's get into fun stuff. Like, have you been thinking of, I thought of this on the drive-in. What is your first kind of memory of the center?
Oh, well.
I know.
Yes, I do have a memory. Okay, so
my first, or
okay.
however you, because I'm not.
Yes, okay. So back in 2005, I was still in college, and I was in school to become a social worker. And so part of the social work program is that you have to complete 2 internships. And so my first internship was with Fayetteville Public Schools, and my supervisor was Ananda Rosa. And so we have, that's where our friendship blossomed after, of course, she was my supervisor. But and so during that internship, I was interning with Fayetteville Public Schools, and part of the internship, I think she had 3 or 4 interns at that time. And so she brought all of us to the Children's Safety Center for a tour. And I had never even heard of the Children's Safety Center. I didn't know, what it was, but my supervisor says, we're going to go to this place and take a tour. And I remember coming into the safety center and falling in love immediately. I mean, I feel like I can tell you, I knew that was where I was supposed to be. And I begged, I knew, and it still to this day is a coveted internship. I mean, people want to have their internship at the safety center. And so it's just, you walk in and it's so special. It's just such a cool place. But I remember several students that next semester, because I had to do one more internship, and had put it as their first choice. And you could put 3 choices down. And so, of course, it was my first choice. And a lady named Debbie Hall was my field advisor, and she has since passed away from cancer. But she was so sweet, and she knew that I wanted wanted it really bad. And so we had to kind of wait, after we kind of had our advising, and we waited a week or so, and then got the word of where we were placed. And I was placed at the Children's Safety Center. And I just still think to this day, how different my life would be if I had not gotten that internship and been able to intern at the center, because, after my internship, when I interned, there were 2 advocates. There was one bilingual advocate and one child advocate. And then we had one forensic interviewer. I think we didn't have a therapy program, so we had a contract therapist that would come in a couple days a week and see clients. And the way that they were paid was that they billed CVR, they billed crime victims reparations for reimbursement for the counseling program. And so that was so amazing, because it's based on reimbursement, and so they were really kind of doing it out of the kindness of their heart without knowing months later if they would get reimbursed, for the mental health services that they provided. But yeah, so then I was able to do my internship, and a few months later I started full time and never looked back.
What is another, just over the years, funny story or memory, or maybe your favorite thing about the center?
Gosh. I don't even know. One of my favorite things about the center was probably that I got to work with Abra for 10 years of my career, and so that was really fun. That was a highlight. She just really brought a lot to, to her job and to her work with families, and so she's great. I'm trying to think of another,
Are there any,
I feel like all my funny stories are more negative about someone. I could be this one time, when, I don't know, yeah.
Do you have any special handprints in your office, or special kid you
I was going to have you
Oh.
talk broadly about what handprints mean, and more of
Well, you moved down here because she doesn't know this, but
does she keep looking?
we talk to people and she sometimes will look that way, but if you're here, then she'll look.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yes, okay, tell me, what about handprints? Just
Still talk to me when you answer.
Okay.
But, I noticed that sometimes, because you want to include everyone.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
You're a good speaker, so.
Nothing specific, more broad, not necessarily a story, but what you notice that kids, what the handprints mean to people when they walk in or when they're doing them. Broadly.
Yeah. So yeah, the handprints obviously are a huge piece of the Children's Safety Center, and so when kids walk in, it's overwhelming. even as an adult, it's overwhelming to walk in and just see thousands of handprints, and so I think that they're so special in the sense that they're kids. They're all kids that we've seen, and I know when we give tours, sometimes people will say, oh, it's they don't even realize that these are all kids, they're not just some kids and some other people, they just don't really even realize. And so, I think it's just amazing that that we filled the walls with so many handprints. And one thing I think, too, that's really cool is that people always kind of think, oh, gosh, it's so sad that there are all these handprints. People say that a lot, we get that all the time. And I just always try to tell them that, for us, whenever a kid comes in and puts their handprint on the wall, we can't take back that abuse has already happened, right? It happened. And so if we get to be the people that help them on that healing journey, wow, that's really powerful. But also, when we have more handprints, to us, the people that work there and see this day in and day out, that's a good thing. That means that kids are feeling safe to tell. So I think that there's kind of that misconception that when we have more handprints or we see more kids, that there's more abuse happening. And I just really don't think that's the case. I think that it's kids feeling safe enough to tell someone.
About handprints?
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like I could tell a handprint story about one in my office. I probably will cry or tear up, but I can try. Gosh, and then I'm will it break confidentiality if I say too much detail? I'm trying to think of how to not give too much detail. So one thing that, in fact, it was funny because I had it in my speech that I was going to say whenever I got my award last week, but I didn't end up saying it because I didn't really look at my I didn't really look at my thing that I'd written out very much, but well, so I was thinking about, I had put on my thing that I was going to say something about, I've had all these different roles at the Children's Safety Center since I've worked there, and that I've loved all of them except being on call. That's what I was going to talk about. But there was one time years ago that I was on call one day, and I
sort of restart that story since it was kind of strong.
Oh, okay.
There was one time years ago.
So, yes, sorry. So there was a time years ago that I was on call. This was before I was the program director. I was a child advocate, and it was 4th of July, and I was on call, and it was probably 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and I remember getting this call. I was at a cookout at a friend's house, just like people do on 4th of July, and I got this call, and I remember, I had worked at the center at this time for many, many years. So this wasn't like, I wasn't like the brand new on call where people are excited, like, yeah, I get to go in for, I was like, just frustrated that I had to like leave this cookout and go into work. And that's kind of normal, I don't feel like I wasn't like a bad person for that. I just was frustrated that I had to go into work. And I very quickly shifted that focus because I got to work, and the client that I had was a teenage boy, very young teenage boy, trying not to give too many details, but he had been sexually abused by his stepdad that day. And he was supposed to go on a camping trip with his little brother and his mom and stepdad, and ultimately, obviously, that wasn't going to happen because he had been sexually abused that day by his stepfather, and someone had seen it happen, and so the report was made. And I just remember always thinking, gosh, like I was so mad at myself for being frustrated that I had to go into work that day. And I was just thinking, that kid is going to remember the 4th of July every year, that he had to go to the Children's Safety Center because he had been abused that day. And even though he was abused other days, it wasn't just that day, but that was kind of the day. And you think about holidays and things like that and how you think. And so he was just the sweetest sweetheart. And he put his handprint in my office and put his little first letter of his name in the middle of his handprint. And so I still have it, and I see it every day. And I look at it a lot. Like that's, for me, that's one of the biggest like memories of a handprint. I've done thousands of kids' handprints over the years, but I will never forget, that handprint and that kid that came in on the 4th of July. And I did get to go visit him a few months later. It was his birthday, and we actually got a birthday cake donated from Shelby Lentz. They made a birthday cake for him. He had to move in with another family member, and they didn't have a lot of money, and it was his birthday. In fact, I think he was turning 13. This was his 13th birthday. So me and his investigator, actually, with the Arkansas State Police, she went with me because she had really bonded with him that night as well whenever he was at the center. And so we took him a birthday cake, and I'm not sure what he's doing now, but I would love to know just if he's doing well.
Having medical at the center is so important because when you're dealing with victims of child abuse, there are so many levels of care that they need. They need care in that moment, getting through a very challenging experience. And then they need care as they go through the criminal justice process. And they need care going through the healing emotionally afterwards. And each of those points is really important. And it's very important that we can do it all in the same location so that families can come and get one-stop care and get all their things taken care of. Because when you're dealing with a crisis, the last thing that you want to deal with is logistics. And so being able to offer them all of that in one location is huge for our families.
Within that program, like what are some of the aspects that y'all are able to do in that medical?
So there's a lot of different areas of needs in dealing with children who are victims of child abuse. There's the forensic side and just getting a good exam that can be useful as families go through the criminal justice side. But then there's also potential medical issues that can be developed. Unfortunately, sometimes children are diagnosed with STDs after these and need to get medical treatment right away because of potential complications those can cause. And so, or if nothing else, families need to be reassured that their child does not have them. And so we're able to provide some peace of mind for families that, no, we've done all the things, we've covered the medical aspects of what they could be dealing with, and either this is how we're going to fix it or they're okay. And when you're dealing with a complex, tragic situation, families need to have that reassurance that we're covering all their bases.
And then the future of that program, how is that going to look moving forward with this new building?
Well, I mean, with the addition of the new building, it just gives us so much more space for our families. Unfortunately, as we've grown, we need more room to provide more care. And so having a space that we've designed specifically to take care of these families, that's got everything that they need in it, is going to be huge. And it's going to be excellent to have everything there, but also, you know, with the design of the building, taking into account that families are in all different levels of their journey, and sometimes having their own space where our families who are in acute crisis, you know, have their own area, whereas families who are later in the process and may just be receiving therapies can have their own space is really big for them to have the room to get their care.
Okay. What is like one of your first memories of the center? Whether it's finding out about it or coming to it or volunteering, or what is kind of one of your first?
So my first experience with the Children's Safety Center was with the Dream Big event. I have some good friends who were involved in planning that event, and they got me to come out. And I'll always remember the first time I saw the video about the work that was being done at the center and how much it impacted me. I had the opportunity to work with victims of child abuse for a long time, but seeing that there was a place where they could go, where everything could get taken care of, was just huge. And to know that these families have resources here that not everybody has was just really, really incredible, and got me inspired to get involved.
Is it safe to say that Dream Big is one of your go-to?
Oh, absolutely. We tried our best to plan our calendar around Dream Big. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun. Supports an excellent cause. We got so many good memories associated with Dream Big. So make sure you show up.
Nice plug.
I'm thinking.
Okay. Let's say one of your friends was looking to get involved somewhere or something. Like, why is having the CSC in Washington County important? Why does the community need to know it's there? Why should people pay attention, and why should they be involved?
So the reality of child abuse is that most folks have no appreciation for how widespread it is in our community. And it's easy not to, because these are things that families generally don't want to talk about. But because people don't talk about it, then everyone starts to feel alone. And so one of the...
Get you to restart, because I think, you know, it probably did sound weird, the appreciation is maybe not the right word.
Understand?
No understanding, because he said no appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't catch it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Have
like,
no understanding.
Yeah.
Have no understanding.
Yeah,
of how
absolutely.
widespread it
Yeah.
is.
So one of the things about child abuse is that most people in the community don't understand how widespread it is. And it's one of those things that because it doesn't get talked about, families end up feeling that they're alone. But one of the best things that the center has done is it's getting out there. It's talking about it. It's talking in our community. It's teaching folks how to identify these victims and get them access to care. And so I really think it's one of the best organizations in Northwest Arkansas, because it's dealing with a group that desperately needs help and that historically has been very underserved just from a lack of knowledge. And so, you know, I definitely encourage folks to learn about the center, have one of our educators come out and teach you and your organization about what child abuse looks like in our community, and just support their mission.
What, is there a story you can share in your volunteering with the Safety Center from like a kid perspective? Like, I remember one time when I had this, or how you helped, or like, is there something you can share?
So
Obviously without.
yeah, so it's one of the best things about pediatrics is that I get to take care of families over time. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most. And as someone who's been involved in pediatric care in Northwest Arkansas now for 11 years and been involved with the center for quite a few, I've been able to see families going through the worst experience of their lives and then be able to see them afterwards, 3 months later, 6 months later, 2 years later, and to see the growth and how their lives have been changed by the help that they received. And so that's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most is I can think of families off the top of my head and remember the day that they came in, and then now seeing them years later and how much they've worked to heal and to see the progress there. And it's really, really special. Short answer is, I don't know how much I can get in trouble with HIPAA, so.
That was good. That was good.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
And people know that too.
Yeah.
I know Casey did the same thing. She was telling a handprint story, but she had to like stop a couple times and be like, okay, I need to tell like.
Well, and the problem, I was actually thinking of stories, and the problem is, specifically with child abuse, a lot of these stories have enough identifiers in them that it really probably could be. Like, I was thinking about the story about that Detective White told a couple years ago, like, and that, that was one of the families, but, there's enough identifiers there that's probably not so.
Anything else?
I don't know if you have anything else fun or a fun dream big story or something.
Do you want me to tell my Rolodex story?
I do like
Yeah,
that.
I like
think
it.
it's,
Yeah.
I think it's relatable.
Yeah, absolutely. So after my first dream big, I realized that the Safety Center was a place that I really wanted to try to help, and so I actually had signed up to be a part of the planning committee for the next year's event. And I'll always remember showing up for the first meeting, and the lady in charge told everyone that we need to get out our Rolodexes so that we could start calling folks to find out who could, support the event next year. And I realized that I don't know anybody that has that kind of stuff, and I really am awkward on the phone, and I don't even own a Rolodex. And in fact, I was so out of the loop, I didn't even realize that the comment about a Rolodex was probably a joke. And so that was not a good area for me. And luckily, shortly thereafter, I was approached about getting to be the medical director, and I really jumped at that opportunity. I feel like my first comment was, man, I would love to do that. Just please don't make me cold call people.
Okay, so then why are you still the medical director? Why do you still come with us day to day?
Being the medical director has been a joy. It's a joy to be able to do what little I can to support the mission of the Safety Center. And I know that the center needs support from time to time on the medical side, but I know that the center gives more back to me than I give to it. The fact that when I have one of these patients come into my office, there's a place where I can say, okay, I'm going to get you care today, and get you all the things that you need is huge. And so if this is what they need to keep functioning, then I will gladly do it, because it truly makes being a pediatrician in our community easier to have these resources available so close at hand. So.
It's so unbelievable that the Safety Center is 25 years old this year. And just to think, back when I started in 2008 and all the growth that we've experienced, seeing more children in Washington County, as well as our team growing, it just always pretty much takes my breath away. And
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
Great. You can edit
Okay.
it. So.
Okay. So, you know, now to think how our therapy program has grown, our advocacy program has grown, development program has grown, forensic interview. I mean, all the programs, with the addition of our prevention and education in 2016, we're just able to offer the community even more. And so when I think about the vision of the future, I know that we will just continue to be able providing more services to the children and their families. And that's what it's all about. Everything we do every day, at the end of the day, it's about the children.
What is one of your like very first memories of the center? Like if you think back, then like
One of my very first memories was I was development director at the time, and there was a case that came in, and they asked me to sit with the clients because there were several children. And so I sat out there. I remember it was freezing cold outside, and the kids came in, you know, in flip-flops, and I remember one of the young girls like immediately, you know, took my heart from me, and she was so sassy, and she had those plastic high heels, and I just built this connection with her. And then I remember them telling me that the alleged offender knew where the center was, and, you know, to not open the door. And I just thought, what? Where am I working? What have I done? But then throughout the whole case, and just thinking of that young girl and the children going in to foster care, and just watching the whole process take place, I just knew that I would do anything to help the children that need our services. And I still have her little handprint on a document in my office, and I'll never forget her.
Great. That's good.
Therapy. Or you can go somewhere else first.
Oh, whatever. You want her to talk about therapy?
We need you to talk about
Beginning.
of the therapy
Mhm.
program, like where you saw the need and whatever
Okay.
we can talk about.
Sure. So when I started in 2008, they had a contract therapist that would just come in and out. And we knew that we needed a full-time therapist because we know if children can come back to the center for therapy, that it enriches the whole family, because the advocates have time, a lot more time to work with the non-offending parents and caregivers, and work as a team to meet their needs, whatever they may be. And so my first grant that I ever wrote was to the Walmart Foundation, and they helped us implement and hire a full-time therapist who actually worked 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, at the center. And so we just saw that need continue to grow. And our first event, that is now the annual Dream Big Gala, was Small Hands, Big Dreams. And we held that to continue growing the therapy program from the proceeds we raised. And so eventually it took off the ground, and, you know, then we grew space, we grew to 2 full-time therapists, and now now we have a clinical director as well as 2 full-time therapists as well as contract therapists. And so it's been amazing to watch that, but it would not have happened without the support of Walmart Foundation in 2008.
Great.
Yay. Okay, you said you had handprint stories. Do you want to?
Sure. Okay. One night,
Sorry. I thought you said something.
Oh, okay, no. One evening, I was subbing on call for one of the advocates, and sometimes it's nice to do that because then you're reminded of what the advocates go through when they're on call. And so the advocate that had been working with the client, she left. It was 5, and so I came in and played with this young girl and her brother, and she disclosed that her grandfather had been abusing her for quite a while, and she lived with her grandparents. And I just remember her brother he was younger than her, but he was so upset with her because he was at the center and all he did was play, video games. And so we made art projects, we sat on the ground and just talked. And so when it was time for me to paint her hand, before we painted it, I said, "Where do you want to put it?" And she said, "In your office." And I said, "Perfect." And so, of course, it was multicolored, rainbow. And so I painted her little hand, and I just will never forget. When we went in my office, she first looked across from my desk, like by the doorway, and said, "Well, I want to put it there." And I was like, "Great, wherever you want to put it." And then she caught her eye, like where my chair is, and there's a wall behind my chair. And she said, "Never mind. I want to put it right by your chair so I'm always with you." And again, it just reiterates how resilient children are, especially if they're able to come to the center and receive their services there and have that one person that may be the only person that supports them through the whole process. Because again, she knew her brother was upset with her because she had disclosed what had been happening, and it affects the whole family dynamic. But just to know that I was that one support that believed her and that she wanted me to always remember her. Again, it's about the children and how can we help them, and the abuse does not have to define them the rest of their lives. But in order for that to happen, they have to have our services.
As executive director of Children's Safety Center, what are you most excited about for the future of the center?
I have to say the most exciting part of being the executive director right now is the capital campaign. And again, seeing where we were 14 years ago. And when the board made that vote in April of 2019 and got behind it and said, "Okay, Emily and Elizabeth, y'all are going to do this." And we started in July of 2019, and then to know we're over $11 million, and it's March of 2022. Just the excitement is also, I love a good challenge, and I think not ever knowing that I would live through a pandemic while being director and having a capital campaign, but to know that the community is so supportive has just been the most refreshing part of my job and most exciting right now. And knowing that our team deserves this, the children, the caregivers, and all the partner agencies we work with. They're not going to be on top of each other. They're going to have places to meet with families. Families are going to have somewhere to come when they need resources. The community is going to have a training room that they're not going to have to pay for. And so it's just, there's so many dynamics that 25 years from now, I just hope that we're able to serve even more children than we are right now.
Great. What else? Do you have anything else on there?
Sorry.
It's okay. I should have brought it to you because it's fine.
Let's see.
These things are sturdy.
I could add something about Our Best helping with the therapy program financially. I don't know if you want that.
I don't think we need
No.
that.
Okay.
I thought about something funny as executive director, like we all threw those pies in your face.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
like, I don't know, just
Okay.
how you, not, I want you to brag on yourself, I know you don't all the time, but you are the best. And just looking back on however many years
Yeah.
you've been ED, and just some of like the fun things we've done as a team.
Okay.
Or like, you know, don't you think like some of those fun
Yeah.
team activities?
I'll just say like some of my fondest
Yes,
memories
team memories, something.
Yeah.
And just how.
of our team are,
Yeah, I think focus on how we're like such a good team and we work
Yeah.
hard and play hard and you know
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
we have hard good days and bad days and I
Okay.
think just coming from like the team.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we really want to work some fun into the video with all the abuse talk.
right, sure, absolutely, yeah,
Because this isn't a fun.
And I just thought of the
drama,
team
it's
aspect thing. I think
Yes.
that would be kind of fun to talk
Okay.
about
yeah,
over the years.
Okay.
Just all the fun things that we've done from I mean, you know, whatever y'all have
Yeah.
done in the past to now.
okay. One of a fun team memory that I have has now happened twice, but when we started the capital campaign to like get the team all excited and to feel like they're also to know they're part of this campaign and this new facility, I said I would take pies in the face for whoever donated to the capital campaign. And so, of course, everyone donated. And I think Casey was probably the first in line to throw her pie at me. And I remember, I mean, I was, you know, we had protected like my clothes, I had goggles on, a shower cap, everything, but it still was just pouring in and I could not see a thing. And then one of the team members at the time that was like so scared to throw a pie at me, hers ended up coming straight at my face. And it just gave everyone a laugh. And some days are so much more challenging than others. And there are hard days, there are great days. And one of the things I really try to tell everyone is, I mean, we all have lives. We all have a personal life. We all have things that happen, whether it's tragic or just frustrations. But I try to remind everyone to leave that at the door when they get to the office so that our team environment, the center's environment is upbeat because we've got to be our best person for the kids. And so we do try to have fun as well. And we do a lot of team lunches. We now have a spirit work group that I implemented. And so a few members of our team run that. So now every month we get a fun calendar and whether we're going to go for a walk on the trails or we're going to go get coffee or we're just going to sit and have a huddle in the conference room and make Valentine bags. You know, it's just kind of takes the load off for a little bit and to get to know the team better because when you think about it, we're with our team some weeks probably more than we're at home. And so it's a great time to do fun things. And then Casey and I have worked really hard for several years on the end of the year and doing something fun. And last year we went and painted, and then we all went and had lunch together, and we do Secret Santa for a week. So we all draw names, and that can be very creative and how everyone, you know, it's a small office, and so it's really hard. Some people will get there at 6 a.m. to put their present somewhere just so someone doesn't see them. We just try to take advantage of anything we can to take the hardness out of our lives.
Love it. I think that's anything else.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
anything else you want to add, but I feel like that will work.
I feel like we have one of the best teams that I have ever worked with. I have been in and out of nonprofits for 22 years, and the team we have is supportive of each other. We have each other's backs. We laugh, we cry, and I just can't imagine not having the team support and having our support system. And it's a family, and we are a family, and our board is part of our family, and our volunteers, our funds development committee. You know, we don't have a lot of turnover. And so I think it's because we truly value and appreciate our volunteers, and they truly understand our mission and that we are about these children in Washington County.
It's so special to be able to provide mental health services at the CSC because we're seeing kids that have come in and are traumatized by either sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect. And by being able to provide mental health services, we're adding that component of actual healing. So we're not only helping get the kids out of the situation, but then with the mental health, we're able to start the healing process. Yay.
Great, love it, perfect.
You can use whatever.
What is that process going to look like, or that program, what does that look like for the future?
For the future, and it's really, really exciting because it means growth for our program. And with growth with our program means just access to more kids, or for more kids rather. And then at the new facility, hopefully, I don't want to say facility, so okay. Sounds like we're like inpatient. And with the new building, we're gonna be able to house even more therapists, even more interns. And all that really means is just access to mental health services for more kids. That's gonna look like more groups, more individual therapy, maybe more specialized therapy. I would love to see where our program grows, where we can kind of really hone into the specific needs for our community, which is always changing. So if that's grief, if that's specific to sex trafficking, if that's specific to parents, we'll be able to have a space to kind of cultivate the needs.
Talk about the, what like group therapy means for some of the kids we see.
And
Yeah.
why is that?
Why it's so important. Group therapy is really neat because we're getting to see kids that maybe aren't seeing us for individual therapy, but still would really benefit from kind of a group atmosphere or access to like a specific topic. So for example, this summer we had two groups. We had a grief group, and then we also had an LGBTQ group. Within those groups, some of those kids were seeing an individual therapist at the CSC, but some of them were siblings of victims. Especially within the grief group, we were able to see quite a few siblings. And that just meant, again, kind of encasing the whole family into the healing process and not just being limited to the specific kid that came in. I know, what else? Just ask me and it'll come.
You're so great, like you don't go on.
It is pretty echoey. I don't know how it's so loud anymore.
Is he on the phone?
Yeah. He's like walking around, that's why it keeps changing.
He's a pacer. Again, are we gonna get the desk treadmills? This is my next thing that I
I
want.
told her about desk treadmills.
And it blew my mind.
After
I was like, how do we get this?
We're like over budget by
It's
maybe,
fine.
I don't know. Let's talk about.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
One more thing, capital campaign wise, talks like as specifically maybe as you can about what like parameters of growth that would be like. Oh, well, you did that. I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to say like we're gonna bring in like 6 new
Yeah.
therapists, because what if we bring in more?
Yeah. No, you're right. I backtrack on that.
Or
Yeah.
less.
Or less.
There, no
Yeah.
one wants to work right now.
Yes, because we need benefits.
Well, why don't you focus on free? Why is it free? Why do we have free
Yeah.
services? The importance of free services, the
And access. Yeah.
access to care.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just getting my words together. I don't know if I want to like tell the story first or like tie in.
I think tell the story and then say, and that's why it's so important that kids have access to free care. Or you could flip flop. I mean,
Okay.
It's up to you.
Providing access to free care specifically mental health services to children and families is so important. If you've ever had to go out and rely on your insurance or rely on doing a copay or paying out of pocket for mental health services, you know how important it is that our families aren't limited by their financial means to start the healing process for their kids and for themselves. A really great story happened recently where I was contacted by somebody in the community who also works in social services, and they had a kid who is living here with their family member. Wasn't able to get their Arkansas insurance yet, kind of in that in-between limbo. Again, if you've ever worked with insurance, you can know how difficult that can be. This particular child had experienced sexual assault and was having a lot of trauma symptoms, including suicidal ideation. And this particular social worker had reached out and was just like, I know that at one point you guys were offering free services. Is that still happening? And to be able to sit there on the phone and be like, yes, like we're still providing free services. Like that's our whole MO. Like you can get them here. It doesn't matter that the abuse happened in another state. Like bring them here. The kid lives here. And she was just so thankful. Because she knew that this kid, and those are her exact words, really was invested in the work, just couldn't pay for it. And so to be able to say to that person, yes, they can come here and it's not going to charge them anything. She was relieved. I was relieved. It was great.
I love hearing you talk about therapy. You're so good at it.
Ooh, what was one of your, so of course in your interview with us for your job, you sold me on just like your passion for the center before you even started working there.
I will die here.
So, what is one of like your first memories, or how did you hear about the center, or just in general? I'm
going to tell my Casey story. It's going to be great.
So tell me about how.
I am so invested in the center. I'm a lifer. That's what Casey, we always kind of refer ourselves to. We'll be here hopefully for the rest of my career because in undergrad, I knew I wanted to work with kids. I knew I wanted to help kids. And so that limited kind of thought process was I'll be a teacher. And went into undergrad, wanting to be a teacher, took a class just for fun called Intro to Social Work. And part of that class was to go and interview a social worker. Well, I got paired with Casey Atwood and came up to the center, and she opened my eyes to all the things that I could do with a social work degree and as a social worker. And I remember leaving that meeting with her. I called my mom, and I was like, I want to be a social worker. And continued undergrad, got my social work degree, went on to grad school, and got my master's in social work and in Memphis. And then my husband and I moved back during the pandemic, during 2020. And when I found out that we moved back to the area, I was like, I know where I want to work. Like this is, I love the work that they do, and just the passion. I think that anybody that speaks with our staff and comes to the center can just feel that passion, and it's really, really special, and it's not everywhere. And I was very aware of that, and I wanted to do anything to be a part of it.
Oh my God.
You want to rehire me?
It might be a 20-minute video.
What new title can we read?
That's perfect, because we haven't heard anyone talk about that aspect quite yet. That's awesome. Liz talked about what a great team we have and like everything.
Oh, do you want to put my sacred piece in there? Oh, it's a sacred space. Okay. And so not only is it just super special to work in an environment where everyone's so passionate, but when you have people that are that passionate about the work, it does become a sacred space. And if I can say anything about our staff and the work that we do, a sacred space is created and kept for our clients, and they feel it when they walk in.
Get sold Andrew over here.
It's true though. I'm not like bullshitting. It's very true.
It's very rare. Because I went and had that coffee with Linda Phillips finally from the shelter, and again,
It's different.
She told me some stories that I already knew, but some that I didn't from the food bank. And I just came back again and was like, thank you for being my boss, and thank you for like
Yes. The sacred space story comes from we were interviewing somebody and I didn't like her and I was like, this is a sacred space. Like, you have to be passionate. That's why I didn't say it though, but that's how I was feeling.
It's like you only let in the
Yes.
people. Like, I'm sorry,
Yes. Because
but
this
can't
is
do
people
that.
on the very worst days of their life.
Yeah.
The very worst day.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Go for it.
What's your favorite memory or favorite thing?
Or
Well,
just
you
something
kind of
that
touched on
we're
some of that.
Huh?
Yeah, something funny that happened that you remember, or like,
Oh god, I know.
It can be
This is why I have to like
really
email
bad,
Peyton when
or,
things
like-
happen because it happens and I'm like,
I know.
I forget. Which is why I have longevity in the job because I forget.
Something pops in your head.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we talked about therapy with the capital campaign, but I just think you're good with words, so I would
Okay.
love to hear you talk about, like, broadly, like, what the new building means to the community, like, what it can mean for the community, what it can mean for our team, like,
Okay.
as specifically as possible, like, in terms of,
Space. I think that's my biggest thing. It's like, with this new building, how do I want to put this? We have only been limited in the amount of work that we can do and the kids we can access just because of space. It's not because of like lack of wanting to or the amount of kids out there there is to help. It's simply because of space. And with this new building, we aren't going to be limited anymore. And with that, like the sky is the limit. And I'm so excited for that because we have such a creative team and such a hungry team to serve that we're going to be able to serve exponentially.
Do you want to talk about the playground at all?
We can.
Playground?
I don't know enough about it. But
Okay.
it's gonna be fun. I feel like
What's interesting is I had to send our landscape architects
Mhm.
all my info that I had about the playground, and guess
who did it?
who was the only one that sent me info about the playground,
Then
no,
I
I believe it, there's a reason why.
even though they were the ones that requested
that wanted it.
You were the only one.
And I knew nothing about it. I was like, I guess we could put this. We could do that.
Lindsay,
I
whatever.
don't think I have anything else.
What else?
I don't know, I want a story from you, I think you're a funny storyteller, so let me.
I know, like a funny story. I mean, help me remember, and I'll tell
I
it.
know, I'm trying.
If I was there, but I will.
I mean, I know it's not been like that long. Like,
No, but there's funny stories.
Yeah. I just think you're a good storyteller, so
Okay.
I'm gonna get something out of you.
Just we got time. I'm gonna think about it.
Is there anything that you did like during? Because I know during COVID we had telehealth,
Uh-huh.
and then we started seeing kids again.
Mhm.
I don't know, something related to that, or
It
is
could be a
there
sweet story too, it doesn't have to be funny necessarily, but.
A sweet
something
story.
a kid did or said to you or
She's
for you?
not
Or, I know.
She's not.
I don't remember things. I'm trying to think if the kid said something like cute recently.
I mean, the cool story you have is one that you can't tell.
Which one?
You're fostered.
I know.
I
It's such a
know.
cool story. And then I handpicked them and said, "You're coming over."
Yeah, I literally saw that happen.
Oh, I think I do have a good story. Hold on. I thought I remembered. Who was I just talking to? I gotta remember the whole thing though, or it's not gonna make sense.
You can start saying it out loud.
Or like an advocate story, because
Yeah.
you were an advocate before.
I mean, do we like? I feel like all those are like, man, we paid for their funeral. What was that? I don't like.
Did you get off? Well, no, it's pandemic.
No, I never like went out and about. No, I didn't do any of that.
You could talk about, I mean, this might be fun, like just how you've never been to a real Dream Big before. And you're
Oh,
excited.
I'm so excited about that.
And
Yes.
talk about maybe the hybrid one and how you had fun or whatever, and then.
Myself and a few other coworkers are what we call COVID babies, and so we haven't gotten to really fully get to enjoy things like Dream Big and what else in person? I messed that up, but
No, but just things that in person.
You're like a hand talker person.
and I'm holding it, and I just am gonna be on the phone pretty soon. Yes. Okay. So we're COVID babies, and so we haven't gotten to fully
Start at the beginning.
Yeah,
of
blah,
that,
blah, blah.
you were COVID baby.
Yes. Myself and other coworkers kind of refer ourselves. It has to happen like as a or I can't because I can't do script. Myself and other coworkers refer to myself and other coworkers.
I liked it.
Okay, just go with it. Okay.
Yeah.
myself and other coworkers sometimes refer to ourselves as COVID babies because we haven't gotten to fully enjoy in-person things, kind of like dream big. We haven't gotten to, yes, because we haven't gotten to enjoy CSC events like Dream Big in person, MDT in person, all these different things.
Which you might start from the beginning again. Just I couldn't tell if like
Yes.
it was a good transition point
Yes.
to start. Me
I'll
and
just start.
some other people are COVID.
Me and some of my other coworkers sometimes refer to ourselves as COVID babies. We haven't gotten to enjoy all of the events that the CSC has in person, like Dream Big, MDT, and all those different things. Super, super, super excited to be able to participate in person this year at Dream Big. It's been amazing to do it hybrid style. Emily and Peyton have done amazing to get people invested, but just kind of that in-person energy, I cannot wait.
Great. I don't know. We'll put it, I don't know, but I like it.
Ask me more things. What do you want? Like what? What do people want to know? Do people want to know what it's like when they come in? What it's some specific things that we offer? Like, they don't really care. They care, but not really.
Not in this.
It's
I know.
This is like 25th anniversary.
Yeah, this is
so-
past, present, and future. 25th anniversary.
In the future for the program, I hope that we are really integrated even more into the mental health community. So that means a lot stronger partnerships with other agencies, trainings, a continued growth with our intern program, maybe not even just with the U of A, but other schools as well. And so the more space that we have is just going to be limitless with the amount of programs growth that we can have. Okay.
I love it when we're like talking things and you get hit.
And I get my voice.
I don't know what to do with her. I like it though, because they're perfect once you get it.
It's like one of those like balloons outside of the car dealership.
Yeah.
It's like, woo! And she's back.
I think that's it, because
Okay.
she hit on all the.
Yeah, you hit all, I mean, you're just so quick, you get it out there in so few words.
Oh, that's good.
I know, it's
That is good.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about like how like the mental health program just kind of like sprung up? I mean, like it didn't really,
Do you know that?
I don't know the whole thing, but
Let's talk about it a little bit.
okay.
But if you.
But again, it was just like, you know, the whole kind of culture of the CSC is seeing a need and then meeting it. And same thing with mental health program. It started out, there was a need. The CSC decided they were going to meet it. And with that has been some growth and growing pains along the way as well. But it's just going to be really super exciting to see where it goes from here.
When I was an intern at the Children's Safety Center, me and the child advocate on staff, there was one child advocate at the time, did not want the children leaving the Children's Safety Center on a negative note. We wanted them to leave on a positive note and to kind of get them back to mentally normal. And so we would put the child and or teen in our office chairs and roll them up and down the hallway. Then after a bit, we thought maybe we better come up with a safer option. And so we regrouped and thought and came up with the handprints, painting kids and teenagers' handprints and then putting them on the wall. And so over time, some of the handprints faded, and I can remember thinking, you know, we learn by hearing, seeing, and doing. And so we could use the handprints as a demonstration aid. And we decided to tell the kids about the handprints. First of all, it tells them they're not alone. And then the second, on the faded handprints, we would talk about how the abuse, like their handprint, doesn't define who they are, but it can help shape who they become depending on their choices. And so that's the history of handprints.
So when you walk into the center and see the handprints, what do they mean to you?
hope.
So say like, as I, walking by these handprints every day.
Well, every day it gets like the same. Every day when I look at them, this is not that happens every day, but when I do walk by and look at them, I think of the hope and the healing that can take place if they choose, and because of the center and what the center has done and the services we offer to them. And so the handprints mean hope to me.
Great. Okay, do you want to tell me your handprint stories? Like the black and blue one, the really
Yeah.
cool one? I love that one.
Is that one not too worn out?
We have never told it in a video like this that I know.
Yeah. I like
Okay.
it. That's one of my favorite ones.
I love it. We tell people in tours, but I think to have it in this would be great.
Okay, and so when I was a child advocate, when I was hired on as a child advocate, I was assigned a case, and this was a 14-year-old girl. She was pretty tall, real tall, taller than I am. And after her interview in medical, I am painting her hand the colors that she chose, and she chose black and blue. And as we're standing in front of my office, she decides she wants to put it above my office door to help remind me when I walked in my office. And the color she chose was black and blue, and I asked her how come, and she's a basketball player. She was at the time a basketball player for high school, and she said that that was her school colors. And so she left the Children's Safety Center, and she lived in Mulberry, Arkansas. And as a child advocate, part of my responsibilities was doing home visits. And I had visited her at her home and walked around a pasture, and she talked about all the animals and everything. But then another time I went, she told me about a basketball game that she had at high school. And I went to the basketball game because she had asked. And I don't remember anything about the basketball game except that her uniform was not black and blue. And so after her game, I take her to ice cream or something, maybe a hamburger, I can't remember, but something. Took her from the basketball game to somewhere, and I said, hey, what's up? You painted your hand black and blue, put it above my door, and said that that was your school colors. But it's not. Tell me more. And she said that's how she felt inside, black and blue, all bruised. Inside emotionally and physically. And I was able to be her advocate and be that consistent person throughout her case and beyond. And she's a good story of hope because she healed, and she is now a pro basketball player with the WNBA, and I can watch her on TV if I watch TV.
That's a good one. Great.
Maybe, because that was a really good story. I think the beginning was a little long, so maybe just telling it up until you noticed the colors were not when you went to the basketball game. Maybe just saying, I had to, or let me think of where it kind of. Or, well, I can probably cut it. You just never know because there's like so many. It's like what point would.
She paused a lot, so I'm wondering if you could go between the two.
Yeah, there were a lot of pauses. I think I would agree.
But if you want her to
Excuse me.
start it over, she can for a little bit.
Yeah, maybe just in case, just kind of
So
restart
have
the
it.
story up until you can do like a Spark Notes version too, and just saying, she painted her black and blue, and that was her colors, and I went to her basketball game, and then from there on, it was really great. So just take it away, and I'll cut you off or something.
Okay. So the black and blue handprint, I was a child advocate at the time, and this teenager received services at the center, and I'm painting her hand, and she chose black and blue. We put her handprint above my office door, and she didn't stand on anything. She's that tall. She's a basketball player. And on one of my home visits, I went to her high school basketball game, and she had told me when she was putting her handprint, she chose those colors as school colors. And so while I'm at this basketball game, I noticed that black and blue was not her school colors. And after the basketball game, I asked her and hit her up about it and said, hey, what's up with this? You said your school colors were black and blue, but it's not, that is not your school colors. And she said, well, that is how she felt inside when she put her handprint, all bruised, black and blue.
Yeah,
Great.
good. Yeah, I got that.
Great. That fire truck going by.
Yeah,
Same
we got
time.
the beginning part.
Yeah,
that
the
you
beginning
did,
part.
So
I-
that's okay.
Yeah, I thought
So funny. Perfect. Okay. MDT.
Oh,
I don't think we need as much that is on here. I think really just like, why did we start an MDT?
Because MDT is, right, like, we were born out of all of those partner agencies that saw kids falling through the cracks. I mean, right, essentially, boiled down, real small. Am I wrong?
I don't,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I think so. I mean,
So-
you meant like the original ones
Well,
who
yeah,
visited
original
a different
ones,
state.
But the people that, like, and even the names that you've given me are people who would be considered MDT today, partners. And so it's all of these people that are our partners today that saw a need for a center like ours is kind of my point. I don't know if that makes sense. So just talking about the origin of there was a need for this, and today we work with, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think just like how MDT got multidisciplinary team. What is it? Who is it? Started it. I really like this. Specialists and professionals who come together to work as a team for the best possible outcome of the children and families in our community. Because it just shows us working together with our partners and the community. Like it shows that full spectrum of care, continuum of care.
Right. So you want me to talk about how I was born in the medical field and then brought into the child maltreatment field, to where all the professionals and specialists are talking in the best outcome for that child.
Yes,
I like
yes,
that.
that's what I was trying to, yes. I thought you
We
said
don't have
something.
we don't have those words.
I know. I knew it was like, I was trying to explain that.
Because I can't talk about, I wasn't one of the original ones who.
No, but, yes, but that is my point, that like, the people we consider part of MDT today are the same
Right.
people that nationally saw kids falling through the cracks and saw the
Identify
need for.
gaps.
Yes, yes, so yes, what you were saying, yes.
Okay.
You got it. You know.
Okay. So, MDT, or a multidisciplinary team, is an idea that was born in the medical field, and so it was taught in the medical field. It was, specialists and PCPs and nurses and doctors and stuff for the best care of that patient. They created a MDT for the best outcome of that patient, and so it was brought into the child maltreatment field, and the purpose is for the best outcomes for the children and teenagers and families. And so MDT, or Multidisciplinary Team Washington County, is made up of Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division investigators, law enforcement, prosecutors, medical nurses, medical field, therapists, advocates, and forensic interviewers. And also in Washington County, we have juvenile court professionals. And so all of us as professionals and specialists get together and talk about what we've done so we don't duplicate services, but also whatever's in the best interest of that child or teams for the best outcome for that child.
Perfect, yeah.
And
We're gonna
then
interview Jana Scott too and stuff.
yeah, and so developing that, like how do we use that every day at the center? How do those teams come together?
Why is it so important
Like now?
for kids?
the mechanics of how we come together.
Well, no, just like, why is it important that we still have that MDT?
Oh, let me see that again.
You know, because you talked about, like, we're kind of focusing the video on past, present, future. So kind of what, you know, you described like why and where it came from, but maybe, you know, how
we still work with those agencies today and what it means for kids today that we have those relationships.
and as like Washington County grows and the team will grow with it.
So, part of our role in MDT, part of Washington County role, MDT role in Washington County is
You can just restart that.
to restart it. Okay.
That's why he's here.
He's gonna have to edit it.
Okay, so Washington County MDT, part of the role and responsibilities of Washington County MDT is to identify gaps in services and treatments, facilitate a coordinated team approach to child maltreatment, and communicate, and so that we don't duplicate services. And this is all for the best outcomes for that child, for that family, and for our community.
Great.
Does that help?
Yeah. What, let's go back to like talk about, we haven't touched on forensic interviewing.
I didn't even, okay.
Just, but let's talk about future. So as a forensic interviewer, okay, why don't you just talk about why it's important that we have that service available at the Children's Safety Center? Like Dr. Kohler was talking about, everything revolves around the child. That's why we have the medical program there. So in that aspect, you know, as a whole, like revolving around the child, why is it important that we can forensic interview at the center?
Okay, so forensic interviews at the center are audio and are recorded. The forensic interviews at the center are recorded. And
Start that over so your eyes aren't like.
forensic interviews conducted at the Children's Safety Center are recorded, and that's also a part of the MDT coordinated team response, in that recording, and during that interview as it's taking place, the partnering agencies can watch the interview as it's taking place so that they can do the best part of their job, which is investigate or prosecute or provide therapy, whatever their role in MDT is. Why it's important that children be interviewed at the center is, that's one reason. Another reason is forensic interviews at the Children's Safety Center, the person conducting, the professional conducting the interview has to have specialized training. And that training is based or hinged on one principle, and that be that the child is our first priority. Not the evidence, not our jobs, not anything else, but that child's well-being is at the forefront of our mind. And so, as an interviewer, it's my job, with all of the science and knowledge that I have, the science meaning the research that backs up the practices I use, it all boils down to, in a non-threatening way, asking that child or having that child invite me into their world. I'm not inviting them into mine. I'm asking them to invite me into theirs. And that's a forensic interview.
Thinking back on all the years of all the forensic interviews that you've done, I have heard some pretty funny stories. pretty heartbreaking stories, pretty sad stories, but I always remember like the ones that are heartfelt, or things like the Justin Bieber one where he's looking in the mirror and keeps like doing his hair and everyone's trying not to crack up, you know? What, is there a story or two like that that you'd want to share of all your years that you've been doing that?
Oh, gosh.
Something that's like heartwarming or funny, or just kids being kids. I mean, even though you're trying to conduct this like
Yeah.
super, you know.
Well, the most recent story is, so as a professional trained to do forensic interviews, we are taught not to touch the children. We are not to touch the children. Can't even lay a hand on their shoulder to comfort them or anything like that. We are told not to touch the children. And recently I interviewed, I think he was an 8-year-old boy, and he had sensory processing disorder. And which means the manifestation of sensory processing disorder for him was touch. And so he was climbing on my back, laying in my lap, standing right next to me all over my shoulder, and so running through my head, I'm going, I can't touch him, I can't touch him, can't touch him. He's touching me. Thank God this is on camera. I don't know, that's not that funny, but
That's fine.
okay. To me, it was funny.
It's fun. Yeah, it is. Let's see.
Or how about the girl that,
Yeah, tell it.
there was a preteen, 12 or 13-year-old girl, who last year, at one point in the interview, I excused myself from the interview and went out of the interview room. And while I'm out of the interview room, youth of today are obsessed with their phones, and she had her phone, and so she stands up, faces the two-way mirror, and starts taking selfies. And it was hilarious. But then the minute she hears me walking down the hallway, she hurries up and sits down and acts like she didn't do anything.
That's pretty funny. I like that. Any other stories from like supporters' perspectives? Because I know how supporters had to really, really help us out in the beginning. Is there anything you can remember from like early fundraisers or early donations, or just early like keeping the lights on, or like anything like that? And you don't even have to know names or anything. You can just say, I remember, you know, we are doing past present. So that could be a good perspective of like, I mean, I remember when we were blah, 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 and we had to ask the community, and you know what, everyone stepped up, and this, you know, something, I don't know if it was one person or whatever, but if there was some kind of thing or something that you remember.
I don't know if this is anything about what you're looking for, but for, what is
Oh,
that?
it's the ice machine. We thought we turned it off.
Something about
Oh,
the,
it's this thing.
yeah, something in there, but anyway.
Well, I'm glad it did it now, so we're good. That was a good point for it to do it.
I think I have a burp coming. Okay, there it is, excuse me. And so there is one memory that stands out. I don't remember how many staff was at the Children's Safety Center, but early on, one of the executive directors realized that the center didn't have enough money to pay all of their staff their salary. So the executive director for a whole month chose not to pay herself. So to guarantee that the staff would be paid. And then I think community members stepped in, donors stepped in, and we haven't had to do that since.
What did that mean to you when they did that? Like, how did that make you feel? Or like,
Well, first of all, I felt like, yeah, this person can lead me. If she's willing to step aside for a moment to guarantee that her staff gets paid, then yes, she's my leader. And to the donors that stepped up, I don't know who, but I do know there must have been some donors that had to have step up. And as a single parent with no other income, I was thankful that that hasn't happened again.
And then, okay, lastly, maybe, talking about that experience at the beginning, what does this new building mean for?
Oh, no, no, can't do that.
what we had, you had.
No.
Casey tried. Casey.
That's Casey. No, I can't do that.
Oh, Sharon, stop it. You're making me cry.
Don't do that.
It's probably been 6 years ago that I had settled back here, and I'd done nonprofit work in Little Rock when I lived there for 14 years. And so when I moved back, I was affiliated with Arkansas Community Foundation in Little Rock. They just opened an office here with Jody Dilday. They're a nonprofit, and they serve the state's nonprofits and the philanthropists. They put them together. So I called her and said, I'd like to go and see the nonprofits that deal with people in need. And so we went to 4, and then we decided they were doing so much for the 2 of us that we opened a group that we'd love anyone to join, the Arkansas Community Foundation in Fayetteville. And we just go and look. We just go look. And so our group did end up, now we have 40 people, but we were a little bit smaller then, or we couldn't have gotten in the space. And so we went, and I don't know how prepared we were, because we've seen some really harsh things, but that one was really hard. And we always go back and have lunch because we've gotten to know each other, and we just all walked out very quiet, and we observed everything. And I remember saying to the group of staff as we were leaving, I said, "You must need more room." That was what I came away with. And in fact, I went straight to someone at Children's Hospital, because the Children's Safety Center in Little Rock is close by, if not attached. And they looked at it and they wanted to, and they saw how it should be, but they couldn't. They're just not a place. They were too new and needed building needs too. But so I started working right then, thinking, and I hope giving support on at least the fact I knew it. So I was pleased when you called and said, we've got some land and we're going to move on this. And we've talked about it. It's something we wish we didn't have to deal with. We wish there weren't people that needed to be served, but there are. And with our growing population, there's more people coming in and more incidents because of the population. And we need to get over, and I tried to, that this is the situation in our society, and we have to help any victims. And the victims are the family and the children and everyone who loves children and who doesn't, who would have that heart of heart. So I was very excited for the proposal to be given for our family, the Hunt family, JB and John L. Hunt family, my family, to be a part of it. And I called my brother, and he was all in for us giving the initial money. And thank you for naming the center after us. We want to be a part. We're part of this community. JB Hunt Transport, my dad did when I was in college. Before then, we lived in Stuttgart, and he owned a rice hull mill. And we've made a change in life happened after we moved here, obviously, and we need to give back. This is our community. This is where we're from. This is where it started. I've lived here ever since, except I did move to Little Rock for 14 years and came back. And I just believe we're supposed to help people in our community, help those in need. And this is a big need. And it definitely goes through every economic level. We have a person in my family that's going through this. She's an adult and having to say things that we weren't aware of. And it's very hurtful. It's a hurt that none of us will ever get over, that happened to a child of ours. So we want good, strong things, and children are more resilient than adults, I think, and with the right counseling and love and understanding, I think y'all are getting them through it the very best you can.
So tell me about when you first came and talk about the handprints.
Okay. Well, that's overwhelming. It's just a hard thought to think of one child coming or 5 children coming, and then just realize that many children, and some are teenagers' age hands, and we know what that can do to a teenager, and some are little bitty, and that's just excruciating to think that it happened to a little bitty, and everyone in between. You can't pick one and say it's worse than another. They're all. But the handprints do show this individual is here, and this individual is here, and this individual, and it makes it very, very real. And as I said, we went back from seeing it to have lunch, and everybody was quiet, and Jody was very good at just telling us how good it was, the treatment was, and we need to focus on that. But that was the hardest one we've been to, and we've done some very hard ones, but that was hard.
And then what does the future look like for the Children's Safety Center?
Well, you're going to have a much bigger, beautiful space that feels real welcoming, doesn't feel scary. The thought of those children before going to the state police office or police station seems scary. And to think they're going to go into this beautiful building that's set up just to take them in their arms and take care of them and their families. I feel good about that. I feel really good about that. And you're going to have so much more room and services for them with all that room. And the staff at Children's Safety Center, I love the staff. I love the staff. I love Elizabeth, the director. I love you for being there and always being the person calling and helping people understand what's going on, Emily. And for me, moving back here, I had a lot of friends I'm thankful for because I'd lived here a long time before. But I know my people I want to know and be a part of, they're people in nonprofit. They have those hearts. They're happy. They have a mission. They're working on it. They have a purpose. And for me, in my life, I believe that if I have a community and a purpose, I'm good to go. That makes me happy and want to get up every day and move on it. And you sure have brought a lot to my life to know I'm working on something that can help so many people, and I get to be a part. And there's been so many people. I mean, this is 25 years. So I'm the person right now, but there were people in my family. There were so many people before, and there's going to be so many people afterwards because we are raising those people as we speak to open their eyes and see what other people need. And so I'm lucky to be in this spot, in this space of time.
I guess I've been with the bank for 26 years, and about 24 years ago, I was a new lender, and so the bank wants you to be involved in the community. I had a customer who I was visiting with and asked, do you have any opportunities for outside of Rotary and Kiwanis and Lions Club? Everybody was in those. They're full of bankers, as everything is. And it actually was one of our current board members, Andy Murray's company, that had a foundation that supported the Safety Center. And they told me about it, and I thought, I don't know that I really want to be involved with that, but it's hard to say no to them. And so I went and said, sure, I'd look into it, and went to my first board meeting and thought, no, I don't really want to hear about this every month. And but I came home, told my wife about it, and she reminded we had a family member that we found out in college could have used the center when they were a little child, and so I thought, couldn't help them at the time, but there's a way to help, and so I thought, it's uncomfortable, but I thought about that family member each time, and so we got involved, and here I am today. 22 years later or something, I think I've been involved 22 years, so.
Yeah. So what is like your current, well, I guess we'll throw that in the bottom of the screen. So thinking back when you first got involved with the center, what were some of the things, because you're one of like the OGs that we're interviewing today. So kind of think back to that time, and maybe not, some struggles or things, or, like what were some of the like struggles that the advocates were having, or with space, or like things that we're maybe still struggling with now that the new building will help with, but anything that you can think of that like was really different back then than compared to now? Is there anything that like...
Yeah, I think, back then, similar, while we still probably could have used space when we went in then, was things that are working now as in awareness. I had walked in, again, never even knowing where it was, had to, being given directions, and I still got lost going to the Jones Center the first time. But hearing this, trying to get out and get, our partners to, and people to understand and come and listen, and it was really raising awareness. Yes, when kids got called, they came, and started that process, but having people being able to listen. And so the advocates at the time, it was always, how do we, I would say, get the word out, but let people know we're here. No one knows we're here. So that was a big one. Obviously, as we've grown now, having a space where, again, we could come in and bring that stuff to the center itself, from awareness, from the prevention training. It was always a thought of, you couldn't come there. There wasn't a secure space for kids and their families, but still being able to do something. I know that's still.
Is that a bird?
I thought it was a mouse.
Yeah, you can just leave it there. I'll make sure it's still running.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's sturdy, but we can just leave it on the floor.
You made me
Okay,
jump, and
no,
I
that's
stopped.
I think my heart stopped.
Yeah, you can always get the wireless ones, but then you never can trust them. Like, is it still going?
Okay, where should he start from? Is that
Yeah, I know.
my fault?
No. I kind of forgot too.
Struggles there at the beginning, that maybe the new building, that's what we were talking about.
I think you were in that transition point.
I think that, at the time, we would never have had probably enough space to do that, raise awareness, have people come. We always did tours back when I started, just like we do now. But, coming in and not having that secure space where you could see, you run it, it's already uncomfortable, and nobody wants, if they're not in the center, a family doesn't necessarily probably want to run into anybody. God forbid you run into somebody you know. And so I think that, where we're going and what we'll be able to do is just, as the awareness has come for a lot of different reasons, and it's not necessarily a topic no one wants to talk about, even though it's still uncomfortable and we don't really want to. Now we're going to be able to take care of the kids, plus let the community know, no, come and see, come and watch. And that was always a big deal. There was always stuff in the hallways. There was always in-kind stuff everywhere, and where do we really meet? And so I think that from an advocate, I just remember hearing, how do we let people know where we are, what we're doing, so more, kids can come know what to do. So I think the future and where we built, it's just been a great progression to see, day one of, are we still going to be, the door's still going to be open, back in the day, to where we are today of building a new building, and again, just raising more and more awareness, more and more people know, and more kids coming. So,
What Elizabeth really did a great job of talking about the team and the staff, and how we have the best staff ever and the best board ever, just without, mentioning negative things, just like how the team has grown to where we are now. You can go into your superhero thing and why you do all
Okay.
that, because I think that is such a great way to put it. But maybe start from like how you've seen this team grown from a board perspective, and just how we're in the best place right now to move into the future.
Okay.
This adding the superhero stuff.
Gotcha. I think that from where we really are at a spot with great teammates, and honestly board from when I started, probably because you have everyone on the team fully engaged in why we're here, what we're doing in the various roles. And so that's been the one. We've had, obviously, for whatever reason, maybe some of the staff we've had in the past have had their own agenda. Everybody here now knows the vision, where we're going, what we want to really do, what we want to do, why we're doing it. And so the role the staff has, the role of the board, is really playing together to get to that part. So that's been good. Weeding out, those that maybe had their own thoughts of the way things should be done, as opposed to, no, it's a team approach. And again, goes back to thing I always talk about, being not only certain people can do what the staff does and hear and be involved in that. That's, I can't do that as a person. I get too emotional, which I know I'm sure it does, but that's why I call the staff superheroes, every day, to stand in that gap for those kids and hear those things and not always have a resolution at the end, which still, bothers me, but yet the board, we can go out and share and be that sidekick to that superhero to help raise the awareness and raise funds and what resources do you need when everybody, again, is all in the same spot. And it hasn't been that till a few years ago, where really both sides have come together of we're all moving this thing forward from a board perspective and the staff. And the staff just does great to see the laughter and the fun in the moments it can of the teamwork and the camaraderie. The care is not just for the kids, where probably I'd say even in the past you had staff, they cared for the kids, but didn't see the event of just let me do my thing and you do your thing. But that's not how we do. That's not how that center works. So I could never do that each day. I couldn't handle it. I know that, but hey, I can be a Robin to Batman. There's no doubt. Raise some money and raise awareness and invite people in and invite them to be uncomfortable that first time. Is that okay?
Yeah, that was perfect. Okay, as you've been thinking about coming here and talking, are there any funny stories from the past, cheesy stories, sappy stories, whatever, that you can think of?
Yeah, probably one that's, I've tried to think of funny. I know there's been some, but it's sad that I can't think of the funny or the cheesy, because as we've been up and down. There was one that's probably really impacted when...
Okay, start.
Oh, sorry.
You want him to start,
Yeah, where do I...
Yeah.
I have a story where...
Okay.
They finally moved. I think they were right at the front.
Oh, okay. But we're good with everything he said?
Yeah.
You think it'll be... Okay.
We might, at the end, we might go do the first thing one more time just in case, because I couldn't really tell how loud that'll be. But,
Oh, gotcha.
let's just
Okay.
Okay.
Keep going.
But kind of say, just share us. I have
Yeah,
this
for
story
this
that's
part,
impactful.
yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking back on my time, serving. There's been one story that's pretty impactful, and it didn't necessarily happen to me, but my wife was coming to the center to drop off, I can't remember, donation, something, and came home. I wasn't there, but came home, and we recognized the family sitting in the waiting room. And it was probably the first to go, well, I knew that we knew people, but we didn't know. And then, to see a family that was there that hit her, and how awkward how do you say hello, but to come back and go, okay, there's another person we're doing that for. We have a personal connection. And it was tough because there were people we cared about in our church, and you don't want to see anybody you don't see anybody there. But that was really impactful when she came home and said, you're not going to believe, I have to share this with you. I'm sure she probably thought it was confidential, but I said, no, I'm glad to know. We've never talked to that family, but just to know that that's another face that we see, that I see when I'm there, my family member, that, and then obviously through the years some others. But that first time to finally have one of my family to see someone we knew, that just drove it home anymore. That these are our neighbors, these are our friends, these are people I work with and their kids. So.
True. What else did you have for him?
It's not on my sheet. That's what I have though.
Yeah.
We had talked about
Nothing, yeah.
asking people, we haven't really asked you on this, but what is something you look forward to each year that the center does? Like an event or something that you look forward to that you're like, oh, that's fun.
Oh man, I really each year. Well, I'm looking forward to getting back to in-person events. Love Dream Big. I'm getting really enjoying asking people for money and letting them know. But I really love Dream Big just because it's a different type of an event for us and just kind of the excitement and how fun it is. And then I love that we stop and we just turn everything off and it's like, no, we need your attention right now, and we can get up and share quickly that, and then open the bar back up and let the libations flow. But I really like that event and getting that, as fun that it is, but yet it's there for something serious. So that's probably one of my favorite ones for sure, is Dream Big. And seeing it grow from the first time to today, or say today, the last time we had the full in person, it's really amazing to just see how much bigger it's gotten and more people coming, and I love that. Love it.
I want you to do this part because we haven't really talked about the ending of this video, but you're so good at that. What would you say to people who wanted to get involved, like to this video? So we're going to be at Prairie Street Live.
Okay.
25th anniversary video plays. The ending, like we've said all this, we've got people pumped up, past, present, future. Like, I would encourage anyone to get with a team member to come see the center. You're so good at like telling people that. So
Okay.
Let me add too.
Yeah.
Because this video is split up past, present, future, this call out is the people that want to be involved in the future of the center.
Okay.
So you can tie in, like, if you want to be part of this, be part of our future kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see how to
Yeah, you can think.
how to
Yeah, it's a pretty big ask.
yeah no
This
how to
part
start
could
that.
be for this particular video, so could he even say something about being there tonight? Or no, we want
No,
to
because
be
we
more
want to share
generic
on
than
social
that.
media.
On other
Okay.
stuff. Okay.
So, yeah, like thank you to
But it
thank you
could
to
be
people
like
that have
they-
gotten us to 25 years,
Okay.
and you've seen what we've been doing for 25 years, 25 more. Here's how you can help us.
And you
get
can even
there.
say something about watching this video. If you're watching this video, you at some point have come across the center in whatever way that means. Because
Okay.
whoever's watching it is watching it. It doesn't have to
Right.
be that night. So,
True.
Okay.
so
Okay.
we just threw a lot at you.
Yeah. No, that's no worries.
Small
No,
order.
yeah. No worries. Just trying to figure out how to start.
Yeah.
I mean, just start with maybe what could get you going is just talking about what is that thing you would say to someone who wants to get involved in the center or get involved in their community.
Okay. Maybe start with for those of you who are interested in getting more involved. A couple of different things I would encourage you to do. One, I want to go back to kind of as you're talking about this, and talk about, you said this past, present, future, to make that connection to those original people that set, the center up, that community members that saw a need, and then where we are. So I'm going to try to make it.
Yeah.
You could start with that thank. Sorry.
No,
You
that's
could start
fine.
with
Yeah.
that thank you of like, it's just generally, you can say whatever, but generally it has been amazing in my time at the center to watch how it grows and the amount of kids we've been able to serve, and then where we are today, I'm excited to see the future of the center. Kind of like that transition, the thank you into like come join us.
Okay.
maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Let me see here. All right. It's been pretty amazing over my years of involvement, 22 years at the center, to see where we started and where we are today. It's exciting for the future. That initial group of community members who set the center up, who saw a need, started the ball rolling. And then those who have come along over the last 25 years to say, yeah, I want to be a part of that, has just gotten us to where we are. More kids being seen, more awareness being raised, more prevention training being done so that kids are more enabled and feel empowered to say no and stop and start that journey. But they can't stop now. And so if you are watching this video and you're thinking, man, I'd like to get involved, maybe it's an uncomfortable topic for you for a lot of reasons, I do want to encourage you to join us. First step would be is find somebody from the staff, visit with them. If you've never been to the center, come and take a tour. seeing the work going on, hearing them talk about what they do and the passion and what we're doing will get you some buy-in. Something along that line, is that okay? Trying to think if there's anything after that, of anything else of getting involved. Come to one of our events in the future, that kind of stuff.
I think you listed great things. I would close it up with just something about maybe a couple lines, because we can edit all this together.
Yes.
Just about
Love editing.
join us in our future. We've got a bright future ahead. However you want to word
Okay.
it. Come join us. Like it takes us all to protect children or something.
Okay. Yeah, so as it gets through, so if you're interested in joining us, we've got a bright future. There's a lot happening at the center with our new location, which will be more programs, which will be more kids helped. We're going to need more support, and so we're going to need more people to join us, more sidekicks joining the superheroes. So I would encourage you to get involved, come and ask a question, take a tour, and join us as for the next 25 plus years at the Children's Safety Center of Washington County.
Love it. Do you think he needs to?
Yeah, anything I need to do over?
Yeah, let's redo just the very first thing, just in case, because that could have been, especially if it's cutting in between the different videos, and then it goes from one person's quiet one to the
Is that how I got involved?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
with
so
You
it.
might
Okay.
just retell it. You don't have to tell it.
Arvest Bank
Yeah,
and
yeah.
community members told you to get involved, so you went to that board meeting and you were like, no. And then I love it. And then you came back, thank goodness.
Do that again?
Is that- I
Yeah,
think that's
because that was
just
kind of the
so-
beginning. I mean, yeah, that didn't take long.
Yes,
Okay.
'cause I think because that noise.
Yeah, just in case. Okay. I got involved with the center I've been with Arvest Bank for about 26 years, and I became a lender about 24 years ago, and they want us to be involved in the community. And so I wanted to find something outside of the normal Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis, because there's lots of bankers in all of those. And I had a customer who had asked if they knew of any opportunities there were to serve in the community, and they had a foundation that supported the Children's Safety Center. It was actually one of our current board members, Andy Murray, his company, and his CFO that said, hey, why don't you come, here's something we support, and you should come check it out. And I remember thinking, no, I don't really want to be involved in that. And it was hard to tell them no to their face, so I said, sure, set me up a meeting. And we went to the first board meeting for me to sit in. And I got done, and I thought, nope, not going to do this. Don't really want to hear about this each month. But I came home, told my wife about it, and we were talking about we had a family member in college that revealed they had been a victim of abuse and could have used an advocacy center in the 70s when that wasn't an option. And so I'd made the decision that while it's uncomfortable, I couldn't help that family member at the time. They had dealt with it for a long time on their own, that here was a way that I could help that family member through the lives of other kids by raising awareness, learning, not being afraid to talk about it, even though it's an uncomfortable topic. So I joined and said I wanted to be involved, and I've been there ever since.
Great.
How's that?
You tell that really well. It's
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
No.
It pretty much was that. Nope, I do not want to do this at all.
And that was exactly kind of what, Andy Kohler said on stage a
Yeah,
little bit. Like,
mhm.
it made him uncomfortable. He knew
Yeah.
what he was doing.
Right.
But just, but now he's helped
Oh, man, yeah.
so many.
Great.
Anything
Anything else y'all want?
else you can think of from the past?
Something interesting. We've talked to everyone about handprints, but most of that has been staff. So maybe like your thoughts on what the handprints represent to you,
Okay.
I
or
like
something
that.
like that.
Okay.
Like what? Because I even asked Karen. Karen told handprint stories from the kids' perspective and what they think of when they walked in. But then I turned it around and said, "You walk by those handprints every day. What do those handprints mean to you?" And so that was like an
Okay.
interesting perspective.
Oh, yeah. And we have how many do we have? Over 12,000? I always get that. Is that right?
I would because I don't know if we're at 13 yet.
Just say thousands of handprints.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
1,000.
we're kind of making this a little generic.
I got you. Okay. When I come through the center, the handprints are just a powerful image. One, that child got a chance the abuse stopped and they got a chance to start their journey. And when you look at the thousands of them that are along the walls, I know that the child that comes in sees I'm not alone. So that's great. It's a sense of hope. But you can look at it and think, man, that's a lot of handprints and how sad that is. But I guess I choose to look at as a positive. When I walk through that, there's another. And I can sometimes see where that might have been an open space and now there is a handprint there. I don't know that story, but I do know that that's a child that's got their journey of healing and restoration started. And so I see it as, while it's sad that they're there, I take some inspiration that there's a child that no longer is being hurt and can start going to be the kid that they need to be and that they were designed to be.
Well, we started looking for an early stage in our company's growth. We wanted to make sure we were being true to some of our commitments around being good for a culture, but also good in our community and doing well for our community. And so that's always been a big priority for us. And so we had a criteria we set out and we created a nonprofit foundation, employee run, that allowed us to direct those funds and make a bigger impact. And so one of the criteria was we wanted to find a charity that was close to children, an organization close to children, and was underfunded. And that certainly, at that time, the Children's Safety Center, I think, was around a couple of years old, and wasn't getting funding from perhaps some of the bigger organizations that a lot of corporations give to. So for us, it meant a lot for us to be able to participate. And part of the criteria was something our employees could donate time and really invest themselves into the cause that mattered to them. And so Children's Safety Center came up right away. It became, in those early days, I think maybe 1999, 2000, a real anchor point for us. I went up and got to visit the location. Everything was cramped in a small spaces, and there were these handprints all around the walls, and it just, rocked my world to see those and the stories behind them. And then that's when I knew this had to be something we would get involved with in a very big way, and we did.
What, because I don't really even know. I've heard things throughout my 10 years there, but what are some of the things that you guys, we have that big kite hanging in our lobby. Wasn't that something?
Well, the whole company really got involved in many different ways. And so the creative team worked on branding and helping with the logo design, with the handprint. That was an important, first early step, but they really got excited about doing that. We created several different charity events over the next 5 to 7 years. One of the ones I thought was really fun was this blue sky kite flying event where we would match and create a donation against people who flew the highest kite, which, the kites were all hand designed by different people on the team. We had loads of employees and their families, a big picnic, and just to try to elevate the brand and talk about, what this means. And the kites with the blue sky really kind of connected home to what the charity was really about and something we got excited about. So we did that for 2 or 3 years. We held golf tournaments almost every year. That was a lot of fun. A lot of the suppliers in the community would participate for Walmart, and our agency partners and our suppliers participated. And the golf tournament became a pretty large fundraising opportunity for us with the Children's Safety Center.
Yeah, I'm thinking about all this land.
We have got to bring the kite thing back.
Cool.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Oh, the kite thing was so much fun.
Yeah, I might have to pick your brain about that later.
Yeah.
We can have the doors open for a tour. You can come see the center.
Mm-hmm.
Bring a picnic. We don't even have to provide food. Just everyone. Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So then, you were on the board back then, right?
Yeah.
Too.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about. I asked Chris this too,
Yeah.
but like the board back then and like where we're at now.
Well, it's really something. At the early board meetings I was at, Dan Pryor was there, Chris Thornton was there, and we got to work together almost as family in some ways. And it was we would have some type of cookies or dessert type piece to go inside this makeshift conference room, board meeting room, that we were packed in there like sardines. And working through very simple spreadsheets of, you could just see the evolution of where the board is today from where it was then. And you got a sense that every penny mattered. And so as a board, we took it real serious and felt very strongly about what was happening. And yet also was very excited to see little things begin to chug along forward and move faster and faster and faster. And so even though I haven't been on the board until recently for 10 years, We've always stayed connected to what was going on with Brittany Duke, and I was so glad to see the Saatchi Exit team still participating and involved and engaged. And it just speaks a lot to how much foundation was laid in the early days with the Children's Safety Center and what it's meant to the employees, because I think it'd be really difficult to not be involved with the Children's Safety Center with the kind of heritage and history we have together with them. But I think one of the big opportunities I was thankful to get a part of was Walmart's got this triple match program that if you make a donation, they will triple match that, which is really unheard of. And I became when I went to Walmart, the Children's Safety Center evangelist to get other executives to do that and make sure they knew that this is something that you can make a triple gift difference to, and it's another way to stay connected. But yeah, it's so many great memories of seeing new services added over the years, and now the building program. It's just remarkable, unbelievable. But I'm really proud of Chris and Brittany and others that, sometimes you can get burned out, in a particular thing, or just go in and out of different organizations, but they didn't. They've stayed the course, and I think that makes a huge difference to the trajectory staying consistent.
Well, you and Mary have done great, because I didn't even meet you until, but I felt like we kind of knew each other through emails and stuff over the years. You guys have definitely stayed.
Real fast, there's a histogram on my screen, but it turns out the water bottle is like a tiny bit, I think,
Okay.
in the frame.
No worries.
Fine. There we go.
Okay. Thinking back, we've kind of getting different opinions on this and viewpoints, which has been really cool to hear. Those handprints, like when you first saw them, when you first knew what they were, who they were from, the stories behind them, like what did that mean to you, and how did that make you feel?
Well, at first, when I saw the handprints, it really brought to life the damage that's done to children, because they all, even in a watercolorish type thing, you can see the broken lines, and get a sense of the brokenness that happens to children. And what's shocked me, I guess, the most is from when we left the market and went to the UK and came back and to tour the facility, Curb facility recently, there's not an inch of space, where there's not really, a handprint. Back in 97, 98, 99, you would see enough, maybe 3 feet up the wall on this one long wall, and now they're everywhere. So it's just the magnitude of that, realizing that every single one of those is a real story, a story that maybe can be the beginning of hope and restoration, and maybe the end of devastation and what could be a terrible outcome for the children. And so to me, I see it as a sign of tragedy and hope at the same time.
Really good. I love that. I really like that. What are you thinking?
Maybe about, like, you talked about staying involved while you were gone, but maybe focus in on talking about what made you come back and rejoin the board after all these years, and wanting to be part of the future of the center.
Yeah,
since you were part of the past.
Well, I'm a big believer in these long circles of life, right? That time professionally for me was a great time, and I felt like I was making a real difference by the participation with the Children's Safety Center. And I still remember that feeling and the impact, and with the amount of history of being engaged with the center, I couldn't walk past that. I had to be involved. So I don't think you could stop me from being involved.
Wow, so good. Have you, as you've been kind of thinking about today, is there any funny stories, like quirky things that have happened in your tenure with the center, stories that maybe we don't know about? I don't know, like some...
Not probably more surprises around Christmas and different things that would happen, and the volunteer times, and hearing about just how things would get packed into that space, and then just managed was crazy with all the clothes and the stuff. When I was coming back and walking with Brittany through the facility, there would be just like, oh yeah, well that was for when we did this certain kind of drive, and it's like, where's all this stuff? Like, how do you hide all this stuff in the facility? Because it's crazy, the ingenuity of the staff. I mean, the staff is just great, and I think the way that you use every single inch, there's no question. Of course, I was shocked to see the building foundational drawings and the amount of investment and what that would mean and the progress on the gifting to get there. It just blew me away, because I always knew and challenged the center to dream big. And I didn't realize they dreamed that big. And so it was definitely the manifestation of a very big dream.
That's awesome. Perfect. Wow.
You're definitely making my job as editor.
I told you he's a pro. I told him we were closing it out with a pro.
Well, it's from the heart, so it's easy.
That's so nice.
Maybe kind of how we ended with Chris too, of like, what would you?
Yeah, if someone was asking you, you know, hey, I want to give back and get involved with something for kids, like what would you tell them they needed to do?
If you want to get involved with kids, I would encourage them to consider the Children's Safety Center, because there's no cleaner line to see directly to impact. And if you care about impact with which your funds are going, then this is the charity, in my opinion, to get involved in. If you want a charity that's going to be glamorous, and of course I think the Dream Big Gala, which I hope comes back soon, in its full force. I mean, that was so fun and so cool. But yeah, there will be those things. But I think to me, the issue is impact, and being able to see that line of impact from what you give, from your time and your money, directly to simplifying this horrendous experience for children in ways that, without the Children's Safety Center, the re-traumatization of these children, it's reliving a nightmare over and over again that they don't have to do because the Children's Safety Center exists. And so I say, do something that lets these kids live their dreams and not relive their nightmares. And I think this idea of not having to relive the nightmare through multiple interviews is what is a very clear impact that you can see very tangibly through the Children's Safety Center. And I can't think of a charity more important than that, because you got to remember the past, but you don't want to rehearse the past. And having these children rehearse the past over and over again, that's what would be happening, versus just simply remembering the past, but then reinforce the future. And I think the Children's Safety Center does both.
Also making urgency. Okay, I don't know what, like Emily told you, but the idea for this whole video is basically past, present, and future of the Children's Safety Center, and wanting to focus on like all the people that have gotten us to where we are, but also all the people joining us as we embark on this really exciting future within the building. So I didn't know, just knowing that, if there was anything else you want to add, or something about encouraging people to get involved in the future, because obviously you've been part of all three stages. And you're one of the few, so just with that in mind, if there was anything you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're looking back, it's been a hard road to get here, for sure. I mean, I think that just impressed with the tenure of the staff and the willingness to stick to it, the willingness of the board to keep at it, and not a lot of changeover. But unfortunately, it's still scratching the surface. And I think what's going to happen as we look into the future with the new building and what that can do to expand the opportunity to serve in many more ways, that's the part I get excited about. I'm proud of the past, but I'm passionate about the future. And I think the future is where, with this building program and the facility and what can be done inside that facility to expand this impact, And if it's done in the way that I know it will be, which is the way you got here, and we got here, I think you'll see all kinds of niche things that will enhance this experience for children and reduce the trauma, but then reignite their future and their hopes in ways that we haven't even explored yet. So I'm excited about the enablement. I mean, the facility today is a real barrier to getting to what we know is out there that could be done in very unique and creative and fun ways that it's going to require volunteers. It's going to require more staff. It's going to require people to give of their time. And so all of us board members have our jobs to do to help make that a reality once the building is done.
Well, so I started there in May of '94, and you had already been there.
Yeah, I started
year.
in January '93. I came over from the public defender's office.
And when a case would come in, a child sex abuse case, didn't have an arrest was made, I would contact the family, the interview was already done, but it was probably done at the police department with an officer who was doing the best he knew how at the time with the training that was available to interview a child and get information, and then that's kind of what we had. As far as any medical services, it would have been the hospital with a doctor who was just doing the best he did with the training he had.
A lot of times had absolutely no training. And
Yeah.
I don't remember
And no
even
equipment.
rape kits
No.
in the beginning. The rape kits that came out with the box that you signed off for evidence and all that. I don't remember them until the safety center came up with a protocol of this is how we're going
Right.
to, from here on out, this will be the rape kit, this is how the procedure that'll be followed.
Yeah. You wonder how you ever did it without.
I can't remember how we were doing it, because once the safety center came in, and within a year, and there was some hesitancy, but not long, by police departments, especially, and I understand their feelings. A detective who would say, if this is my case and I am assigned this case, they take ownership, and they take responsibility. So I'm the one that has to get to know this victim. I'm the one that has to talk to them. But then they realized in pretty short order that safety center, that's all they do. They don't do anything else. This is the only crime we work with is these children with sex offenses. That's what we do, and we do training for that constantly. And we get more and more experience because that's all we're doing over and over again. And it's not that the police were not capable of doing it. It's just they were doing everything from shoplifting to murder. And there are budget constraints on them that we can't keep sending all of these people to this training and pay for it, because they have to go back to whatever government agency is over their budget and try to get it. And it did not take them long to realize that Children's Safety Center is a very important factor in doing these cases, in prosecuting these cases, in investigating these cases. And then they became very willing to, let's go to the safety center. And that was their first reaction. I would say within a year, I think all the departments were completely on board.
Because everybody was doing the best they knew how with what was available. Other agencies were doing the research on how to make the whole process better. And we had the multidisciplinary team meeting, a small group at the time of people in the service, DHS and counselors and some law enforcement. And then our director at the time, Judy Vanetta, heard about the center in Tulsa, went to check it out, came back and said, you won't believe this and all the amazing things they're doing. And our office and other agencies were like, let's do it. And so it really kind of took a bit, but it took off from there. And really, it just kind of evolved. People just, change is hard and scary sometimes, but I think it didn't take long to evolve for people to realize, oh yeah, someone specialized in doing this part of it, that sounds like a great idea. This is going to be way better.
And you had mentioned earlier something about the exams at the hospital, that whereas before you would have the ER doctor on call, who would not have been specifically trained. They may have had something in medical school about it.
Right.
But until Children's Safety Center came along, weren't even using rape kits that I remember.
No, or colposcopes.
Well,
It took us a
certainly
while
not
to figure out how to
colposcope.
say colposcope and spell it.
Or know what exactly it was doing
Know what it
until
did.
you watch a video. And go, oh, that's what it does.
Oh, that's what it does.
But I don't even remember rape kits. I'm not even sure I can remember how things were collected, other than they would collect clothes.
There was a visual exam, and the response we usually got, if anything, was hymen intact. Remember, we got a lot of,
Yeah.
and that was
That
the
was the
extent of it,
thing
what anybody could do.
30 years ago.
Yeah, right, right,
That was
right.
30 plus years ago. That was the way you did it.
That's what we got.
And anything that you could see, any marks or any bruising or any scratches or red marks or anything like that. And it wasn't that they weren't capable of doing better, they just didn't have that knowledge or training. And then once the safety center came along, everything just kind of falls into place.
They were like aha moments. Oh, a child-friendly atmosphere. Duh. Oh, special equipment to look at what's really going on. Yes, of course.
People who are trained just to do this,
Just to
that
do
we'd
the
have never
interview.
come up with. We would have never thought of that.
Too many people, we thought if we're good with kids, then you could do a good kid interview,
Yeah,
as
I can
opposed
remember
to
a few
being.
of those video
Yeah.
interviews where you would say, he is getting along well with that kid, he is making connection, but we're not getting anywhere. That's great that kid feels comfortable with that particular officer, which is what they were trying to do.
Right, exactly.
But we're not getting anywhere. And the specific training that the people at Children's Safety Center go through is just excellent. And that's all they do, which is very important.
I think what was in my role as victim assistance and kind of following victims through the prosecution, the advocacy piece was so attractive and has just, blossomed since. But when we received a case in the office from an arrest, an investigation had been done, or say we received one where no arrest was made, but prosecutor's still going to look at it to decide what to do with it. Maybe the investigation happened 30 days prior, 40 days prior, and if there was no reason for Department of Human Services to open up any kind of supervision case, that family had not heard from anybody in all that time. Nothing was in place. And so once I got it, I could start making contact, telling them what's going on with the case, but also referring out for services. But it'd been how long since they talked to anybody and nothing had been in place. We lost some people in that time that we couldn't find. We had situations where offenders were back in homes for one reason or another because maybe they thought nothing was going to happen. So I know from my perspective, and really everyone in our office at the time, it was like, this is amazing because someone's going to be immediately in touch with this family, immediately assessing needs, immediately connecting them with, maybe they don't need counseling, maybe they need shoes. It was all kinds of things that became available through advocacy that we couldn't provide out of our office, but were so much needed. And so I can remember early on calling it filling that gap, and filling that gap with such needed services was huge, just maybe even the biggest thing to come out of it from my perspective.
And I've always thought in 20 plus, maybe 26 years of criminal law, I can't remember, that these cases are it's not even close to me, in my opinion, are the most difficult criminal cases to handle. They just are, on average anyway. There will be some cases where there's a great confession, or there's great DNA evidence, or there's even video. But a lot of times there's not. A lot of times you don't have those things, and it some sense of security. Even if the case can't proceed, but there's a sense of security that you got, a feeling that you got, because the safety center was now involved in the child's life, and doing the examination and doing the interviews, and then keeping in touch with them. It made you feel better about handling those cases, whereas before you just didn't have that ability. You just didn't have someone like the safety center that does nothing but that, and are good at it.
So how did the Safety Center come to be?
So What I can remember is being at that meeting where I told you Judy Venata was the multidisciplinary team coordinator, and she'd gone to visit the center in Tulsa and come back and had ideas. And she was an action person, which is great. So she started, looking at what it would take. And then what I remember is after she was working on it, we had another MDT coordinator named Jim Smith, who also action person, 100%. And I just remember bits and pieces of things like, I can remember meeting in a room, I think across from where the center is now in another building, and talking about it and kind of all being in agreement that we need to do this, and saying, okay, well, everybody pitch in $5 for the 401c3. So, very seldom did I ever have cash on hand, but I'm like, here's my $5. And that happened. And then the next thing I remember is being able to tour what's the center now when it was empty, and kind of imagining, well, this could be this, and this could be a conference room, and this will be an interview room, and this will be an advocacy room, and just kind of walking through like that. And then flash to having our multidisciplinary meetings there, and touring again and seeing the medical room decorated and the first handprints on the wall, and then just really being in constant communication, weekly if not daily communication with advocates about children who'd been through the center, cases that were coming to us, and as prosecutors we're working through the cases, and I'm talking with families, but also checking with the advocates to see, kind of where they are on their end, and are they in counseling, and is there something we need to know about that, and if we needed medical record, the record of the exam to get that, and so it's been just a partnership ever since.
And it's one more trained. You were hitting on that. There's one more trained voice who you can talk to, and say, what do you think about this? Why do you think this? And someone who has great experience and training in that area, that he give you one more voice to talk to about ideas on a particular case or issue with a case.
So then, how is this new building going to allow y'all and the multidisciplinary team and everyone to do our jobs better?
Well, having been there, it's you need space. So, we're still evolving. We still need more space. We still need more people doing what they do to serve more kids and families. So, it's I think it's amazing. If you go back to that first time and see what little space there was, and how it was going to play out at the time, and how everything has, now the masses of amounts of stuff they're doing now in that small space, just allowing to expand and do more of what they do well, what you all do well, is very exciting. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're breaking ground June 24th. I'll send you guys that too. It's coming.
So exciting.
It's
Yeah.
coming.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you'd ask her on that list or whatever, about why is it important. One of the things is, even though we all know whatever percentage, there's a percentage of the population that doesn't know about Children's Safety Center, doesn't know exactly what they do, but one of the things you don't ever have to convince somebody in the community about is crime. Nobody likes to hear about crime or people getting away with crime, even if it's not hitting their own household. But with these child sex offenses, it may not be hitting their own household, but it may be hitting somebody that they know, family from church, from school, a friend, someone. But even if it doesn't, it's still important to them, because as we know, children are the most vulnerable, and people don't like to hear about crimes not getting investigated, criminals not getting punished. So the selling point is not as difficult, because the community, by and large, when it comes to crime, they are concerned. Mm-hmm. And so it is important. And
the child-friendly atmosphere feels like common sense. It didn't, but it does now. Classrooms at schools are decorated for kids, they're age appropriate. Think about the dentist offices now. They used to be like that. They were
but of
super
course-
scary
of
when we
course,
were kids.
What were you going to make into that before the Children's Safety Center? Where was it gonna be? You had police departments.
Interrogation rooms,
Exactly.
Scary.
Are you gonna dedicate an interrogation
Right.
room specifically for the child?
Yeah.
When you probably don't have space, especially with the smaller, departments, they simply just don't have the space. But like
No.
you said, that, you would think now, well, that was just common sense.
Yeah. Why
didn't
not
you
have
make
a
it where
child-friendly
it's
space?
on the child's level?
Yeah.
But it probably never would have happened through most of the police departments, based on money,
Right.
based on space.
yeah. And in mindset, the mindset of having someone who's used to interviewing children, you just go in kind of trained and prepared for that, instead of having to shift from, I just interviewed this, adult suspect on something, or there was an adult victim on something, and having to totally shift gears into, talking to kids. Well, that doesn't have to happen because that's the mode all the time. And I was gonna say, like, dentist office now, they have dinosaur cars and all kinds of like fun stuff in dentist office because they want to make a stressful situation more palatable for kids. And if it's good for dentists, how can it not possibly be good for talking about something traumatic in your life? So it feels like a lot of things related to kids have evolved, and this would just naturally too. It makes sense. So I feel like people would be, oh yeah, of course it needs to be a child-friendly atmosphere, and a place where kids feel safe and comfortable and like they belong.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. It's child-friendly. And it's funny how that's innovative, I guess.
I guess.
Because,
Yeah.
But
Well, we'd have never even thought to have told the police department, why don't you make your interview room into a child-friendly? And that's, what, for the whole time, for everybody that comes through here?
Yeah.
I mean, it's space. I mean, even, I don't know what it was. I used to know the number of interview rooms they have in like Fayetteville or something.
Yeah.
It's not that many. It's
No.
certainly not unlimited. And it's just not something we'd ever thought to do.
No, but even the interview rooms being child-friendly are still strategic, because remember when we had a playroom in the prosecutor's office,
Oh,
and we'd
between
have,
the, two-way mirror?
yeah, and we'd have kids
Why
come
did we
in.
have that two-way mirror? What was it in there for?
I don't know that we ever used it. I don't
But,
know
I
if-
mean, what was the purpose of it?
Maybe someone else's idea. I don't know, we never used it. But we had the playroom, and when we had kids come in, sometimes we'd go in there.
Yeah.
But it was overstimulating because there was no strategy to it. It just had toys. And so it was like, well, this is child-friendly because it has toys, but it really was just a mess, and we couldn't really even focus in there. So it's not just child-friendly. There's research behind how it's set up to make it most effective for interviewing kids.
I
And
forgot about that room with the toys.
see, all along, we think we know what we're doing, and then we learn better. And as long as we're open to learning, we're just going to keep getting better.
Yes, ma'am.
that's why we still have Karen Black. Those are her interview rooms, and they are. But I understand the overstimulation. I mean, it can be an issue.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, for sure.
What else? Are we good on your
Yeah.
end of things?
Yep.
Okay. What else? Anything else? Let's see, what else did I have on here? We said, you guys touched on most of this. Oh, I added one today for you, Judge Street.
Oh.
So talk a little bit about how you were a prosecutor, kind of your role as that with the Children's Safety Center, and has that evolved any since you've been a judge? Have you seen kind of like the growth or evolvement, or has there even been a change? I don't know, just different perspectives from prosecutor to judge. I didn't know if there was. That was Karen actually added that one. I don't know if there was anything. I know.
No, because I don't do criminal law.
Yeah.
So I don't see, I mean, my docket is civil, domestic relations, and probate.
Right.
So I don't see the evolution. The evolution that I saw was going from zero to going from nothing to what it is today. So I would not be able to talk about.
So talk a little bit about that prosecution when you were a prosecutor and it going from zero to what it is today. Will you say that over again and then go from there?
My experience was from going, as was Dana's, was going from nothing to where it is today. And so what we were able to experience because of that, because we predated the children's
So
safety
real
center.
quick,
Yeah.
I may, going from 0 to where we are today, I don't think you really said what you were talking about.
Yeah,
going
as
from.
Washington
Oh.
County prosecutor,
Oh,
because they won't know what you're talking about.
but in the prosecutor's office, both Dana and I were able to experience the Children's Safety Center going from 0, non-existent, to where it is today. So our experiences and what we were able to see and view is the changes that the Safety Center had on those sex offense cases with children, making you feel better about the case, having another trained voice with experience to talk about different issues and aspects of the trial, and really it was night and day. It really became night and day of having someone who does nothing but these interviews, doing the interviews, and
From your perspective, like before that, we had a written summary of a victim's statement. Then with the safety center, we got the video.
got the actual video.
Yeah.
That's right. We get the actual video to review and to see, and then could call, and a lot of times ask, why didn't you ask about this? What do you think about this? And do different things so that we could continually change and make things better. Because I remember after you watching the video, you would call the interviewer and talk to them about the interview and the process and what may or may not be changing. And like you said, because some were recorded, but I don't remember a lot of videos.
Not many, no, I don't remember a video, and I don't remember many audio recorded victim interviews, child interviews, and the difference it made reading it on paper and seeing the child actually answering the question, because remember we had to bring kids in and almost start over with them.
They certainly did. Now I remember that, having children and sometimes learning some things that were completely new about the entire case. And not so much, maybe not because whoever did the initial interview didn't know what they were doing, but just because it didn't get brought out for one reason or another. And that's right, they would have to go through yet one more interview. Now I kind of remember us talking about that in the early days, about selling the Children's Safety Center, about this is going to cut down on the necessity of multiple interviews
Yeah.
with
Major
this child.
impact.
That's right, I remember. Now it's coming back. Well, that was a long time ago. That you wouldn't have to, like you said, you would basically be re-interviewing them and going through all of it, because we would want to know all of the information from the child, him or herself. So that, yeah, that's right, that made a huge difference in cutting down the number of times the child had to go through it. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
That was good.
I got started at I don't think there was a CSC before I got started.
Yes.
I think Mimi Matheson was the founding director, and she had a conversation with Katie Bell, RN, who was the head of the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners Program in Tulsa. And I had been on the faculty at the University of Oklahoma in Tulsa in the family practice department and had been a resident there as well. And late in my residency and during my early years there on the faculty, we started a sexual assault nurse examiner program, and Katie Bell was involved with that. It was right around 1981 to 83. I know that there's an article in the Journal of the Oklahoma State Medical Society that I authored with somebody else talking about that program in 1983, so I know it was that year. I moved subsequently to private practice in New Mexico, and then I came back to Arkansas in 1996 to join the faculty at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences in their Northwest Family Practice Residency Program. And Katie Bell had spoken to Mimi Matheson, and my name had come up. And so Mimi said, well, he can help us. And so she contacted me more than once. And didn't really respond to any of my negative responses about joining the team. She was very encouraging, and eventually I succumbed to her requests, and we started a partnership there to help with the CAC program at the Jones building, which I believe it still is today. And so that was the beginning.
Awesome. Next, you can kind of do this twofold, I think, because it is why is the medical exam component of the CSC is us, and then the CAC is the broad, term. Service is so important, so that you could talk about like kind of what goes into that. And I know on the phone you talked a little bit about how the views have kind of changed over the years, so you could touch on that. But generally, why is it important? Why was that a component that they wanted to include in the CAC model initially? Sort of all those sorts of things.
My job there was to be the medical director and to do the medical examination and medical history of the children that presented to the safety center. And having a good medical evaluation was very important. However, no more important than any of the other services that were available through the Children's Safety Center, including an expert forensic interview by people well trained in doing that, as well as all the support that came along with for the children and the families. Those were pretty early days, I think. I did not have special training prior to starting at the Children's Safety Center. I went down and trained with Dr. Jones at the University of Arkansas in the pediatrics department, who had a well-established child abuse evaluation center in Little Rock, and this was invaluable training for me. I was already well-trained in taking care of children and operating a colposcope because of my practice and teaching at the time. But getting that extra training from Dr. Jones was absolutely essential. But as I said, it was early days, and many of the things that we believed about abnormal versus normal findings in children have changed over the years. If you look at the most recent clinical practice guidelines compared to what we were thinking back then, things have changed a lot, and this is important. It means that knowledge is advancing, people are doing good research, and the purpose now, just like the purpose then, was to try to understand as best as we can what the truth is, and to try to present that as best we can. I think even in those days, however, it was very important for us to establish the fact that a normal exam is normal, even for children who have been abused. And my role as a medical director was really to establish that in my examination, as well as when I had to go to court and testify.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, so like you mentioned, we are still in the JTL shop currently, but we are in a capital campaign for a new building. We'll be off of Jean George Boulevard, tripling in size. We'll have like a shower and 2 medical suites and lots of awesome stuff, and be able to expand our program. So as someone who was involved with the CSC so early on, years ago, what do you think of the growth of the services, of the staff, of us tripling our size, and what does that mean to child abuse victims in Northwest Arkansas?
The growth of the Children's Safety Center is both wonderful and terrible. It's terrible because we all hoped that this problem would become less, but it certainly has not. I think there are 4 million children a year born in the United States, and probably about 1 in 10 of them will be victims of abuse before the age of 18. And so 400,000 children born this year could be victims of abuse. So to have the services that are needed to appropriately evaluate and care for those children is absolutely essential. And so the growth of the Children's Safety Center tells me that the people of Northwest Arkansas and the medical community, the judicial community, the child advocacy community, and the community in general are taking this problem seriously. Back in the old days at the Children's Safety Center, we had a visit from Senator Blanche Lincoln, and we went down and had tea with Governor Huckabee's wife, and we tried as hard as we could to raise funds and support. That effort has just doubled and doubled and doubled over the years, and I'm very pleased that the Children's Safety Center is well supported and growing.
Awesome. Lastly is just anything you remember from those days that you would like to include, and then also you can do kind of a wrap up of where you are today and all of that sort of stuff. So anything else you want to add?
Yeah, you've asked me what I remember from those days, and you know, it's a really, you know, I've actually thought about that, and it's a really difficult question. In some ways, I've succeeded in forgetting some of my experiences there. One thing that comes to mind is that my daughter in those days was playing with one of her friends, and her mother overheard them talking, and they were talking about their dads. And my daughter said, "Well, my dad, he's not much of a hugger." And that was the same time that I was doing this work, and I was wondering if the work that I did, you know, had an effect on my relationship with my own children, and I suspect that it probably did. It's been important in my development as a physician and as a human to have done that work. Some of the things I learned about collaboration and about listening and about the nature of human suffering that I learned from working at the Children's Safety Center are still with me today. In my role today, I'm an inpatient palliative care physician at Washington Regional, and we do hundreds of evaluations a year of elders who have serious illness and who are in the dying process. But that level of suffering harkens back to the suffering of the children that many of the children that I saw when I was at the Children's Safety Center, and it informs the work that I do now. I'm also an administrator at the hospital, and we've just come through 2 years of awful COVID surge, and being able to work in very difficult circumstances without all the resources that you need to try to get safely through are lessons that I learned from my colleagues at the Children's Safety Center and their advocacy work for children those lessons I still apply today.
I first got involved in the center, I think, when Judy Goodson, a professor at the University of Arkansas, who's a client of mine, and I'd known for quite a while, just came to me and said, "Would you like to be involved with something that I am?" And I said, "Well, I might." And so when she explained it to me, I said, "Yeah, I think so." So I went to a meeting. And that meeting was probably their second board meeting, because they had incorporated in September. And so after talking to them and finding out the mission of the organization and things like that, I thought this would be a good thing to be a part of.
So after kind of that, what was your role in getting involved, or how did you implement yourself, or what did they ask of you?
Well, they asked me to be the treasurer because I'm a CPA, and Judy knew that, so they needed one, and they had just started, and they had organized, and they needed some financial help, so I jumped in there and helped as much as I could.
And then now how long have you been helping the center, and why do you still continue to help the Children's Safety Center?
Since probably December of '96, and I've provided the accounting services, payroll and bookkeeping and tax return, things like that, and oversaw the funds, signed checks, lots of checks, and helped set the general direction of the center.
So maybe say a sentence like, I've been involved now for over 26 years, I'd say. Say, I've been involved for 26 years now, and I'm excited at the future of the center with the new building.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
kind of.
Well, I've been involved for 26 years now, and I am really excited about where the center is, what it's doing, where it's going, who's involved, the leadership, the people that work there. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited as an accountant could ever get.
That's good. So have you thought about any of those kind of early memories and what you remember, if like the struggles or any kind of, I don't know, just kind of any history that you have that you want to share?
Well, the center was started by a group of people who were...
Hold on. Sorry. We tried to turn that off last time and it never went.
That's the part you should keep.
I forgot about that.
The center was started by a group of people that were involved in Department of Human Services at various levels, including the Department of Human Services. And Judy was a professor at the university, and she taught lots of courses about that kind of stuff. And so when we met, or when I met with them the first time, there were about 12, and they were that group of people. And so I'm assuming, I didn't ask each one of them, but they weren't financially well off in order to fund something like this. So that was an immediate concern. And for the first probably 10 or 12 years, we had financial difficulties often. We were wondering where our next set of funds was coming from to run the organization and to pay payroll. And it was much smaller then. So this is a fun story. I was sitting in the line in my truck in about 2004 at Wendy's to get pick up lunch. And the phone rang, my cell phone. And I answered it, and it was the director at that time, and she said, the grant or something fell through and we're not going to get it. And immediately I knew, uh-oh, we're in trouble because we don't have much money in the bank, and we were counting on that grant. So I had been told by one of my friends and clients earlier that if we needed anything to let him know, and he would see what he could do. So I called him and said, hey, guess what? We need it badly. We are not going to be able to make payroll next week. And so he took care of that. And so that was really great. And since then, we had several years when finances were touch and go, but in the last probably 7 to 10 years, we have really done well, and we are in what I call a fantastic financial position now. So I'm very grateful for that, obviously, as an accountant.
Maybe speak on why it's been so good as far as the community has really stepped up, and speak to just the individuals and local organizations, and just how the last 7 to 10 years or however long that we are financially stable because so many people have stepped up, almost like a call to action type of deal where you're just saying thank you.
Well, of course, initially, we had trouble getting people involved, both financially and volunteers, because you need both of those a lot, as you know. And it just seemed like it was always a struggle to get enough people involved. Not only giving, but also working. So the last 10 years or so, it just seems to me like huge numbers of people have stepped forward. And of course, they've been cultivated and drawn and talked to and everything by several people. They've just become almost electrified, it seems to me. And of course, I'm not a organizer like that. I'm an accountant, so I don't really understand all the things that go into that, but the people that I see involved and the staff and everyone are so enthusiastic, and so the word is spread, because one of our problems has always been, and we've talked about it, so it's not just my understanding, that people just didn't know what the center was, and they didn't know what it stood for, and they didn't understand about it, and they so they just go on their merry way and not help out. But now it seems like the public in general is more informed as to what the center's purpose is and what they work with, and people are more aware of how big of a need there is for what we do. And so they jump in there and help a lot better.
What else do you have on your sheet?
Those were things I had down. The name and mission recognition is critical, to me, because people
Talk
didn't know.
about that. Start at the beginning and kind of talk about your thought that you had there
My what?
with the name and recognition. Is that what you just said?
The name and recognition. That's what I just got through
Oh,
talking
yes,
about.
okay, got it.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on about that, but you don't want you don't want me going on and on about anything.
What else are you thinking?
Well,
From
I was
everyone
mostly
that we-
thinking, I was looking at how to turn that off. But, from everyone else we've got, okay, what?
Or anything that you thought of?
I just had another thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
You'll cut that part out, right? I think that we all are charged in our lives with taking care of the vulnerable, the people who can't help themselves, the people who have no power over their lives, and children fall into that. And most people probably don't realize how much abuse there is in this world at all socioeconomic levels. And I didn't. But over the years, I began to realize, wow, this is a big deal. And nobody's going to help those kids like we can, because we put all of it together. We, meaning the organization, not me. I'm an accountant, but I just deal with numbers. But it was obvious that that we should be doing this, and that this is a great thing, and everybody should help. So as the years went on, we'd all like to be out of business. We'd all like to not have any clients. But the fact of the matter is, we got lots of them. And so we've just done an absolutely astounding job, in my opinion, with dealing with all the cases of child abuse in our area of the state, and helping others in their areas of the state do the same thing. Big influence, and I'm grateful to be a part of that.